Scone Palace in Scotland boasts 1,000 years of history. It is the ceremonial site where Scottish kings were crowned.
Possibly the most historic place in Scotland. And it is where the likes of Macbeth, Robert the Bruce were crowned or inaugurated. Gosh.
And modern royalty have left their mark here too.
This one is the present King Charles's tree. He wanted to plant a seed of Lebanon on the Moot Hill, and we still had this gap left.
When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock. I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset. Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Scone Palace stands majestically on the River Tay, on the route north to the Highlands, close to the city of Perth. In 1803, the medieval house was transformed into the splendid Gothic palace we see today. Scone is one of the most historic sites in Scotland and welcomes over 100,000 visitors each year. For over 400 years, Scone Palace has been the family home to the Earls of Mansfield.
Hello, good to see you. Welcome.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome.
Hello. Lovely to see you again. And I had a splendid walk down and just, wow, so impressive.
Good.
The history here is pretty immense, basically 1,000 years of it. So one of the struggles that we actually have is we have two pots of history. It's kind of the medieval royal coronation history, the forming of the Scottish kingdom, and then there's our own family's sort of Downton Abbey story.
Right.
So, yeah, you have to juggle the two a bit.
Yeah. Because
that's quite fun.
because you have so much history. You've got 1,000 years of history. I mean, that's pretty
There's
impressive.
a lot of stories to tell.
All those Scottish kings that have been here to be crowned. I mean, it's quite something.
I know. I feel that's why I got a sort of little bit tingling when I was walking up, thinking, incredible. Okay, so little tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Which way?
This way.
Because this is vast. This is a vast home. I know we can't. How many? Can I just ask? Approximately how many rooms? Come on, Sophie, give me a number.
About 120.
Yeah. Originally it was 120. Now a few walls have been taken down. So it's probably a few less, but originally 120.
Okay,
Quite a
well,
few.
that's incredible.
It's a lot of dusting.
This is one of the rooms. This is stunning.
This is the state dining room. This is where Queen Victoria came in 1842. That was a major event that happened here.
The table and chairs were all specially made for her visit.
Really?
So that was the smallest thing we did. We put an entire new driveway and an entire new bridge in, put the building on the mains for the first time, brought a butler out of retirement because the new one couldn't hack it. You know, like really went mobility.
Because this is what happened when royalty would arrive. You would not just pull out all the stops, you would build things. You would make sure that they were comfortable, that there was the right furniture, that you had, as you just said, a new drive was built.
A special bedroom suite for her and Prince Albert.
No.
All specially done. And
Stayed for one night.
I was just about to say, guess how many nights they stayed, and you ruined that.
Of
You ruined that, William.
All of that for one night. Yeah.
But for a very, very special lady.
But for a very special lady, you know, so absolutely. Now, what's that over there? Is that sort of what it is now? I'm just looking at that model.
You've got it absolutely right. It's before and after.
Yeah, the one here, this is the 16th century building. This is the building that we were gifted.
Okay.
by James VI of Scotland. And that's what it became in 1800.
No.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that if you just picked up that and dropped it on here, boom,
Yes.
you can see the same sort of quadrant.
Yes, 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 you can. Oh my goodness. So it really has properly evolved.
Yeah,
And
it's
this-
evolved, but the foundations are very old still.
Yes, exactly.
Originally, Scone was a religious site.
Right.
And a kind of a site of power, similar to Westminster, essentially.
Right.
So where kings were crowned, where parliaments were held. In fact, the first recorded parliament in Scottish history was held here. The reason why it's a palace is because originally it was an early Christian church, and a monastery, and an abbey.
Right.
When you have an abbey, you have an abbot, and the abbot lives in the abbot's palace.
Okay.
So their name is a relic of that.
Okay. Right.
We came along post-Reformation in 1605, 1607.
Right.
Time period. And it was this guy that did it. David Murray of Gospety, later Lord Scone, and then later Viscount Stormont.
I see.
Slightly dubious character. Like, we've got some characters that we can be very proud of.
Right.
I'm still pretty proud of this guy. He's a cool guy. But at the same time, it was a dangerous bit of Scottish history. A lot of things were happening.
Yes.
A lot of people were on the move. And I think we benefited from that. But we are not the head of the clan. So we are Murrays. Not
Yeah,
the
I
head
was
of the
gonna
clan.
ask
We're
you that.
cousins who did very well for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was a cousin of the people who became the heads of the clan,
Right.
later the Dukes of Athol.
Yes.
We kind of span out about 50 years before, and then the whole clan actually was on the make.
Okay.
And we did
Okay.
particularly
But you
well.
are related.
We're very proud to be Murrays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Very proud to be Murrays.
Brilliant. So okay, so we can thank him for this tour today that you're giving
Yes, we
me.
can. Yeah.
And-
this is the state drawing room. So this is the sort of the showstopper room.
Right.
This is the one where actually originally there would have been no portraits in here. So this
Okay.
is you can see here this sort of now slightly dilapidated. It's on the long list of things to do.
Right.
Silks. So originally, and we actually have a copy. We'll put
I'm
up at the end.
going to climb over this.
I
I'm
love
going
it.
to go-
I love that.
Yep. I'm
I
going
love
to
it.
show you what it looked like.
Yeah. So this was this kind of, think of it as like a Victorian disco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
This would have, because all these silks would have been in this wonderful blue and gold.
No.
This
And
is
in the candlelight, it would have all been shimmering away.
It would have been this bright.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is this is an original piece which was
Yes.
kept in a drawer.
Kept in a drawer, and then wow.
Yeah. We're hoping to take sort of about 10% from everybody's tickets and put it into the silk drawing room fund.
Right. Yes.
Build up enough money to be able to restore this room.
Yes.
It's going to be a massive amount of money.
Yeah, of course. Well, of course it would be. It's really nice walking in here. I know that this is, roped out for the visitors, but all the photos here
Yeah.
of your family to show that this is a family home, and that's what's so important. There you are.
Quick name drop.
Yes.
This desk was given to the second Earl of Mansfield by Marie Antoinette. They were busy mates in Paris. He was the British ambassador there, and she referred to him as the Le Bel Anglais, which is pretty good going for a Scotsman, especially as it
I'll
was
say.
just before the American War of Independence, when basically the British and French were already fighting each other.
Of course.
So he was one of the major players in our family history.
Oh,
and she gifted him
wonderful.
that table.
It's beautiful.
And when it was new, the leaves and the flowers would have been vibrant greens
Yes.
and coloured, and it would have all just
Yeah,
been
yeah.
like a painting. But it's all faded with sunlight over the
With
years.
time, sunlight, yes. But it's still here.
It's still here.
Which is brilliant.
So this is the library, which I know you're going to say, where are all the books? There are some books here, but there's the collection of ceramics.
I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
And in particular, here, the big painting over the fireplace is the first Earl of Mansfield. So there was David Murray to put us on the map.
Yes.
We then actually had a pretty rough time for about 100 years. primarily because we backed the Stuarts, who became the Jacobites.
Yes, yes.
And we were there, we were very, very loyal to them. Too many times, and we were fined, we were jailed, we were fined again. It was not good. So when this guy was born in 1785, the palace was in a massive state of disrepair. And he had a good name, and he had a good education in the grammar school in Perth, but basically that was it.
Okay.
And he himself had this incredible trailblazing career in England, then Britain, as a judge, as a lawyer and then a judge. And he became...
So he brought in money.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He became Lord Chief Justice, the longest serving in history, and was said to be the second most powerful man in the British Empire, second to the king.
The king,
Yeah.
yes.
An incredible individual.
Right.
Yeah. And his legacy is still very active today because he essentially reformed British common law
Right.
at a time when the empire was growing. So a lot of your own law in the States, especially the commercial law, is all based on his work.
Wow.
So he's referenced about 24 times a year in Congress.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Excited to share that this video is brought to you by Surfshark, a game changer in online security, especially during my frequent travels abroad. So if you're gearing up for any upcoming trips, this is a message you don't want to miss. Surfshark, a VPN, virtual private network, is my go-to solution for keeping my online details and information secure. As someone who travels internationally pretty much every 6 weeks, I rely on Surfshark whenever I need to connect online. In an age where more individuals attempt to invade your privacy, Surfshark ensures that your online activities and location remain confidential. Think about those instances when you connect to public Wi-Fi networks at cafes, restaurants, or other public spaces. They pose a higher risk. Using a VPN on these public networks is crucial, as it encrypts your data, safeguarding your details from those potential threats. With Surfshark, you can even conduct secure transactions, like accessing your bank on public Wi-Fi networks. Personally, I feel significantly more at ease and protected when I'm online with Surfshark. The user-friendly interface makes it a breeze to navigate. Simply download the app on your computer with the ability to switch to a different IP address in another country. Surfshark not only protects you from hackers, but also gives the illusion that you're in a different location. One major benefit for me is the seamless streaming experience. With just a click, I can virtually travel the world. For instance, if you're globetrotting and want to connect to an American or UK server to access the extensive Netflix movie catalog, Surfshark is the key. And here's a special treat for you, an exclusive Surfshark deal. Use the promo code Viscountess and click the link below. Don't compromise on your online security and freedom, and make sure to check out Surfshark.
So this is the Long Gallery.
Sure is.
Lives up to its name.
How long? How long?
I think it's 180.
I thought it was 150, but you're probably right.
I haven't counted recently.
And it was the longest room in Scotland, but it is no longer since they built a longer room at Holyrood Palace.
Okay, so you're second.
Well,
That's
second.
okay. Still, you still
Second to royalty. That's
right. Exactly. That's all right.
We can live with that. Many important events took place in here. Charles II processed down here before going out to have his coronation. That's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. Right, so here's my fun fact about that. So Charles II processed down here because of our forebear, the first Earl of Sandwich. Did you know that Edward Montagu was sent on a secret mission to bring Charles II back from exile and crown him?
That's
and
amazing.
that was Edward Montagu, and that was why our ancestor was given the title Earl of Sandwich, because at that time Sandwich was a great naval port. So there you go.
We
So
will find out.
We
are
didn't
we
get a
so-
title for that.
Are we kind of connected then? I mean, a little bit.
Definitely,
You know, I
definitely.
feel right at home now knowing that Charles II processed down
And maybe
here.
your ancestor came here with Charles II.
Well, yeah.
Because he came to Scotland first. Before, yeah.
He brought him back 1660, and then he was crowned 1661. Yeah.
Yep.
But incredible. So you've had Charles II here.
Yeah, he was the last king to be crowned.
Right.
Here.
Okay.
Yeah. But we were still, the legacy continues. So a rather ridiculous event took place in here when Queen Victoria came, which was a display of curling, which typically takes place on ice outside. Right. But because it was the wrong time of year and she didn't fancy it, they did it inside.
Here.
Yep, they did. Yeah. They did in here.
Took up the carpet on the
Curling
wood.
is that, I see it on the, watching the Olympics. I actually never knew as the American what curling was before.
It's what everybody did after work. There were state teams, village teams, there were no computers, no TV. It's what everybody did in the winter, and it was a great community sport, and everybody did it on the entire estate. So it was a really good bonding session, and they all had a terrific time doing it.
So we've got Charles II, Queen Victoria, crowning of Scottish kings. Who else? Come on.
Well, I want to quickly show you. I want to quickly show you this book, which was written by Queen Victoria, and the family was sent. It's called Leaves from the Journal of Our Life in the Highlands. It's a well-known book. But the fun thing about this book is inside is a letter from Osborne House in the Isle of Wight, and it's addressed to dear Lord Mansfield. And it says, the Queen desires me to enclose a copy of her book. And it's from her lady-in-waiting, who's the Duchess of Roxburgh. But the fun bit in here, and it writes about their visit to Scone, the fun bit in here I thought you'd like, Julie, is that one of the paragraphs says, Lord Mansfield and the Dowager Lady Mansfield received us at the door and took us to our rooms, which were very nice. And that's a bit of fun because we've just received you at the door.
And I think your rooms are very nice. So, that is wonderful.
You mentioned the Charles II connection. This is quite a fun little box. It's got the royal coat of arms on the front. And inside, speaking to our family's connection, there's the man, Charles II.
Wow. Yeah. And this was given to the family? Or
This is probably a little statement piece.
Right.
Kind of like the Jacobite piece is saying, we know who we are loyal to.
Right.
For too long.
Exactly.
Because there's also a memorial to Charles I on the bottom.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So this would have been a little something in a room somewhere, so people would understand we know who who we are loyal to. So what's quite fun here, a little coronation display. You can see here the invitation to my great-grandmother, Dorothea. You can see on it number 92.
Yes.
So number 92. We're quite pretty happy to be in the top 100 for starters.
Yeah, I say.
Here is a coronation chair. Can you see here? Number
92.
Number 92.
So she got to take the chair with her?
You're not allowed to pick it up and walk out. You do have to pay for it.
Right.
That's part of the tradition. I'm not sure if they do it around, but it's quite fun.
Still, that is fantastic. And number 92, you're right, because there were over 8,000 guests at the coronation of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
That's probably because her husband was the Lord High Commissioner to the Church of Scotland.
Right.
So he was the Queen's representative to the Church of Scotland. So quite senior.
Scone Palace is steeped in royal history. One of the many treasures is so precious it's safely stored away. In 1567, Mary Queen of Scots was captured and imprisoned in Loch Leven Castle. There, she was forced to abdicate in favor of her son, the future King James VI of Scotland. And it's while the Queen was imprisoned that this exquisite treasure was created.
The American Scots had 4 ladies-in-waiting, all called Mary. There's a famous poem about them. It's Mary Beaton, Mary Seaton, Mary Carmichael, and me.
Right.
And Mary Beaton's was the aunt of Sir David Murray of Gosparty, First Lord Scone, First Viscount Stormont's wife.
Right, wife, got you. Okay.
And I believe that Sir David Gosparty, Lord Scone, Viscount Stormont, was on the loch side and was part of her rescue party when she escaped her imprisonment. So somewhere along the line, we were given these embroideries.
This is incredible. Now, if you had to have parts of it, did it have to be restored?
Yes.
Yes.
This will be sun damage.
Yeah, you can
Right,
The
sun
darker-
damage, but then you can see
That
here.
hasn't been sun damage.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were made probably as bed hangings, and the side of the bed that was on the window side would have had the sun damage.
Yes.
Well, this
you
bit
can-
is much.
You can see here the little S motif for Stuart.
Oh my.
Yes, and then a wonderful collection, probably, of the plants and the bugs, the insects that they could see in the gardens at Lochleven. So a lovely thistle here, apple, and there are some fun, maybe not on this piece, but there are raspberries, strawberries, and
Look at and a little.
Here you can see raspberry. See.
Yes,
And they've
yes,
got
yes,
strawberries.
raspberries, yes. Oh,
Another wonderful thing here.
this
Now,
is
how they would have done
extraordinary.
it, they would have done the individual designs on linen, and
Okay.
then they would have been cut out and they would have been put on the velvet. In order to stitch it onto the velvet, they'd have used gold thread to cover up the edges and
Right.
to secure it to the velvet. And you can see the gold thread
Yes.
round it all.
It's exquisite. So what, now that this has been, it's back, it's restored, what's your plan with this?
What would be lovely would be able to get some display cases so that our visitors would actually be able to get up close and look at them.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'd have to be very careful about the sunlight.
Yes.
Shall we open up the other box and then we can have a look at what's in
You
that one?
can see it might be.
The complete bed hanging is an astonishing survival. The intricate designs of each piece beautifully worked.
Hopefully I've not got it upside down. Let's see. Yeah,
Oh,
upside
wow,
down.
wow.
That's the back
Right,
of it.
but that's quite interesting to see that, actually. It's really
Yeah,
interesting
you can see there's
to see.
the outline of
Yes,
whatever
and then the
plant is.
thread, is that the gold thread that would be outlining that? Or what do you think?
No, that isn't. That's just tacking it. That's
Right,
tacking the
tacking it,
design.
okay.
That's just tacking the design on. Let's have a little.
This is wonderful to see that, though. Oh my goodness.
It's quite damaged, that some of that.
Yeah,
But you can
yeah.
see different animals appearing
Yeah,
all
look
the
at
way
that
along.
centipede type
Yes.
thing.
But look at this. This color is still rather rich there compared to.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful.
You can flip it over if you want. We can keep going.
Oh my goodness.
We can just imagine them sitting in captivity in a small walled garden. This is basically all they could see.
Yeah.
So they're just
So they just
putting
put
this
it-
to paper, as it were.
This sort of represents the time that they were imprisoned. All of this, just what they saw, the world that they saw. Incredible. What a treat.
Perhaps the most sacred area of Scone is out on the hill alongside the palace. For centuries, this was the ceremonial site of the coronation of kings.
This is the reason why people come to Scone.
This is what
This
I
is
have
it.
been waiting for. I'm so
This
excited.
is it. This is the spot.
Yeah.
This is the spot,
This
isn't it?
little mound of earth is possibly the most historic place in Scotland. It's called the Moot Hill,
Right.
and it is where the likes of Macbeth, Robert the Bruce, and others were crowned or inaugurated. So the Christian element of that ceremony would happen in the abbey,
Right.
and then the kings would be processed up onto here,
Okay.
to be proclaimed by the people in what was more of a pagan part of the ritual, which meant that some of them were slightly more reluctant to go through
Okay.
it.
Right.
So Alexander III, for instance, as a boy, about an 11-year-old boy, had to be dragged up here. So if that bit of the ceremony did not happen, you were de facto not King of Scots.
Oh
This
my-
bit had to happen.
Right.
And what makes it, I think, so cool is that it's called the Moot Hill, but it's also called the Boot Hill in a bit of cool sort of Scottish folklore. And it's called the Boot Hill because when all the magnates and the sort of the leaders from around Scotland came to witness a ceremony here, they would bring with them in their boots a bit of their own soil from their own land. And when they came here, they'd then pour it out into a pile. And obviously after many ceremonies, it became what is now the Moot Hill. But that meant that when your Macbeth or whoever it was came up here and trod on that pile, he was standing on a little bit of hill, a little bit of land that represented all of Scotland.
All of Scotland.
And making
right.
his vows to the Scottish people and everything else.
How
pretty cool.
It's very, very cool.
Pretty
And
cool.
I'm able to sort of look all around, as you mentioned before, sort of Robert the Bruce, but then of course Charles II.
Yeah. Kenneth MacAlpine, often called the first King of Scots.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Big
I
names.
mean, yeah, big names. James IV, wonderful. So, but here, this is representing, let's talk about this, the Stone of Scone. Because we've recently just had a coronation,
Yeah.
so that many of us have witnessed for the first time, a coronation for the first time in
Yeah.
our lifetime. Recently had a coronation, and it's all about that Edward I coronation chair,
Yeah.
Stone of Scone underneath it. And tell us that story and how that Stone of Scone relates back to Scone Palace.
So you got it right. Edward I, in 1296, essentially commissioned his men to come here to take the Scottish regalia and other such symbols away.
Right.
That included in the prize piece was the Stone of Scone, otherwise called the Stone of Destiny, which he then carted back to Westminster, and that's where he then commissioned. So the stone preceded the chair. He commissioned someone to make the chair to go around the stone. So then he could, in a very symbolic way, sit on it.
Right.
In terms of his dominion over Scotland.
Okay, I see.
But it was taken from here.
It was taken from here. And what year was that roughly?
1296.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they knew Edward's army was coming. They had 2 weeks' warning. So what do you think the abbot might have done?
Well, hit it. Yeah. Made sure that
Might
it was
have.
safe. Yeah.
Mine's done. Because some
Right.
people
Might
say
have
it's a
done.
fake once over. Some people say it's a fake twice over.
Okay.
Because a bunch of students pinched it back in 1951 from the Abbey. Great story. And eventually they returned it, or maybe not it.
I see. So technically, it's been taken twice.
Been taken twice, at least.
Taken twice. But we do think that the Stone of Scone that King Charles III sat upon on May the 6th, 2023, was the real one. Is that right?
It is clear that the stone that was taken from here, whether it was fake or otherwise, was the one that appeared in the coronation. So the
Right.
one that was used in the successive coronations
Yes.
for many was the one that was used in the coronation.
Okay. Fantastic.
Whether there's another one hidden
Right.
away somewhere, who knows?
Who knows? So fascinating.
But what I find most fascinating about it is it's made of local sandstone. So Kenneth MacAlpine bringing it here doesn't really make sense. But what I think is really interesting about that is that someone felt the need, one of these kings felt the need, somewhere between 840 and before Edward I pinched it, to introduce the idea of the stone being really very important.
Okay.
And that coronations, you could not be crowned king. You were not the king unless you sat on that stone and were proclaimed. So someone felt the need, and there's like this great act of kingship, making nation building, ritualization. They felt that they needed to do that.
To do that.
That's what I think is most interesting about it.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So we're here on Moot Hill.
Yep.
And then, but that is in front of, what am I seeing here?
So this is the family chapel, and it is the last remaining element of the abbey.
Okay.
So and the abbey was a really very large edifice, about the same size as the palace.
Oh my goodness.
But stretching over here like that.
Right.
And that's where obviously the Christian element of the coronation would happen, and where a few people, like actually Robert II of Scotland, was buried somewhere here. We don't know where, which is annoying. But we'll find out someday.
I'm sure
this,
you will.
obviously, John Knox then came along in the Reformation. That didn't go so well. The abbey kind of lingered on for a bit, but was then taken down, and the last remaining bit was moved up here.
Okay.
And that became our family chapel, and the family crypt is below.
Down below.
No, can we go in?
Yep.
Yeah, we
let's go
can,
and have a look.
yeah.
And what does this date back to? What I'm seeing here.
So what you're seeing here is a 17th century
Right.
built, like restoration of what was a transept, a side chapel,
Okay.
and that was then moved up here.
Right. Lovely.
So this is
Very special.
Yeah, the family
Here we
chapel,
are.
and the crypt below.
So the crypt below. So everybody's here.
Yep.
And we have a family vault as well, but ours is full. So I won't be buried there. But how is yours looking?
There's one spot left, but that's been left so my great-grandfather and grandfather are out the back, so everyone's just leaving it for someone really special.
For someone really special. Well, this looks like a masterpiece.
It is, yeah. Done by a man called Maximilian Colt. Yeah, he did only about 2 or 3 of these, so this really is something special.
Oh, so this was created, as you said there's just a couple of these. What am I looking at here?
So the man in the middle, on his knees, is David Murray of Gosparty, who we mentioned earlier, the first Lord Scone. So the first guy in our family, essentially.
Right.
Surrounded by his mates on either side, the Earl Marshal and the Earl of Kintor. And essentially, it's a little note, a little chat between David and God saying, I wasn't all that bad, please let me in. Yeah, letter to God. I'm slightly overstating it, but it's kind of true.
I love it. It's a letter to God. But you know, this is so wonderful to see this. It also just reminds me that, you know, we have to remember that, you know, several hundred years ago, to show off your wealth and power and how powerful your family was, something like this would be commissioned.
And by Scottish standards, this was like, whoa.
Right.
So down south with you lot, maybe a few people had these. Up here, that sort of European import of talent, this was exceptional.
Yeah.
So it would have been a major statement piece.
Yeah, it is absolutely exquisite.
Moot Hill isn't the only feature in the landscape at Scone, which has grown in remembrance of royal occasions.
Is it true that there are a lot of royal trees here?
Yes, it is. If they come and visit, we like them to plant one.
Right, and is that
something for a long time as well?
Right, so it's sort of tradition, is that right?
Yeah.
That you come to Scone Palace, you are a king or queen or emperor, that's right. You've got many, it's not just British royalty, is that right?
Yeah, international royalty as well.
International royalty. And they come and they plant a tree, yes? Yep. Because this is so important in history, Scone Palace.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes right back to Mary Queen of Scots.
And beyond, James V.
James V.
Oh my goodness.
So 500 years or so.
Right, of planting trees.
Planting trees.
Right, so what's this one I'm looking at here?
This one is the present King Charles's tree, but he planted it in 2010 as the Prince of Wales, and he wanted to plant a cedar of Lebanon on the Moot Hill, and we still had this gap left. So it'll grow and grow and grow, and eventually it'll be the cedar of Lebanon that we all know and recognise, those really, really sort of big trees. There's a famous one in the scene looking at Highclere in Downton Abbey.
Yes, yes, of
Lady
course.
Mary sits under.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And so this is the James V tree. So potentially the oldest tree on the property.
Wow.
500 odd years.
No.
Still going somehow, despite the middle bit fell off. It was blown off, ripped off in a storm in 2010.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
May. Very late storm, but it came down because all the leaves, they suffer worse when the leaves are still on the trees.
So just down there, that's the James I or James VI tree. So that dates to around 1600, maybe earlier.
Very old oak.
Yeah, very old oak. Somehow standing. It's all rotted away, but still somehow standing.
Yeah,
it's
a lot like that in Windsor Great Park, at Windsor Castle, when they start retreating back.
They die back. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's in full bloom. I mean, do you have sort of a tree surgeon coming out, looking at these trees and making
constantly,
sure?
Absolutely.
And then this lovely tree was planted by our former monarch, Queen Elizabeth.
In 1967.
No. Oh my goodness. So she had only been queen for just over a decade.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's
Very young. In her 30s then.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
A Norway maple.
A Norway maple, planted by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, 12th of October, 1967. How wonderful.
This is the second tree planted by Queen Elizabeth.
2012, her Jubilee year. She came for lunch, it was so exciting.
She came for lunch here.
Yeah.
Were you here?
Yep, I was here with my 3 daughters. Sadly, William wasn't able to come back, which was just really, really upsetting for him. But our 3 daughters, there was a big lunch party in the long gallery.
Big gathering.
And how did you know that she was, I mean, how much in advance were you contacted to say the Queen would like to visit?
A good 9, it was a good 9 months.
Right,
there was
right.
Lots of
preparation.
Lots and lots of preparation. And it was a really, really big day.
Oh, and was the public allowed to see some of that, or was it very private?
Yes,
yes, right.
Yes.
The public were all lining on the Queen's Drive.
Yep.
And so she planted the tree.
Yes, and we deliberately chose this place because in time, her ancestor's tree will eventually come down. You know, it's very, very old now.
James V.
James
yes.
V. And I planted it far enough away, I hope, to allow this oak to grow up next door to it.
Yes.
So when that comes down, we then have a lovely, majestic oak in its place, planted by the late Queen.
What a wonderful memory. And, you know, you now have this, which will be here in her memory for hundreds of years to come. Fantastic.
Yep. And an oak, such a symbol of Britain.
It certainly is.
In the park, there is one very special tree which stands high above all the others.
So, Julie, this is a very, very famous tree at Scone Palace. It's a Douglas fir tree. It was planted from the first seed that was returned here by David Douglas, who was born at Scone and was the son of Scone, who became a famous botanist.
Right.
And we are very lucky to have his original first tree. And as you can see, it is simply enormous.
Yeah,
It's
so
enormous.
He was born here and he was a gardener, a very early sort of junior gardener. And then he was sponsored by the 3rd Earl through his education and then to become this famous botanist, and went to North America and discovered a huge number of species, including obviously the Douglas fir, this being the first one that was planted. And he left this huge legacy in forestry. The guy had so much potential, but sadly he actually died really quite young, only about age 36, in 1834 in Hawaii on one of his expeditions.
No. Okay. So 1834, Hawaii, obviously a state of America, but during that period, Hawaii was called the Sandwich Islands. Get this? Because the 4th Earl of Sandwich, our ancestor, was a patron sponsor of Captain Cook, who then discovered Hawaii, and then called it, of course, after his sponsor, the Sandwich Islands. Yes.
What a coincidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Captain Cook also died in Hawaii as well. Well, Sandwich Islands. Yes. There we go. 2 reasons I feel right at home here. Douglas fir and the Sandwich Islands.
Yeah, but also interesting tribute to various people in the 19th century sponsoring these great talents to go and do various things.
Yes, to go and explore and discover and learn. Yeah, and
David
bring it all
Douglas-
back.
Yeah, David Douglas brought back 300 plants with him.
Did
That was
he?
it, and put his name to them. Yeah.
And it's incredible to think that this was just a seed.
Yeah.
And look
Yeah.
at it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We got-
enormous.
we got-
Astonishing.
Up and up and up.
Yeah,
we got
astonishing.
trees planted by royalty, and then trees that are royalty.
There
So
you
in the
go.
forestry world, this is royalty.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and people will come just to see this tree.
Yes, no, of course. I mean, I'm astounded by it. It's enormous.
In the private apartments of the palace, Sophie and William share their insights of maintaining and managing a historic home on the scale of Scone Palace over a lovely cup of tea and...
We're going to have a scone at Scone.
Scone,
Scone
or scone.
at Scone.
We're scone people.
Oh, definitely.
But there are quite a lot of people who are scone people. And yeah, it's a little bit confusing, and it's quite geographic.
Yes.
I think it might be to do with the Vikings, actually.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I won't even try to pronounce it. I'm sure I would. I think every time I've tried to say a scone, my husband says that I butcher it. But was that all right?
Yes, that was good.
Is okay?
Yeah. Yes, that's
Right.
okay. But we're at Scone,
Yeah, I know.
and a pet name for the place is Chateau Gâteau. It's quite fun.
Well, this is absolutely brilliant, everybody. Should I?
Yep.
And you've got-
I put a little table out. I put a little table out for you.
Okay, well done. Oh,
Yep,
lovely.
little table out for you.
And a fire. How wonderful. Well, this is a perfect way to sort of cheers to Scone Palace or Scone Palace or Scone Palace or no, just Scone Palace, but perfect way. But what I'd love to chat to you both about is, the reality around living in this history and being the custodians of this historic house, of the estate, but also making sure that this survives for future generations and maybe putting our own legacy or stamp on it. And the two of you together, mother and son, it's so lovely to see the both of you together. But Sophie, I know you've been here for, how long have you been?
I moved north in 1992.
Yeah, right.
And my parents-in-law moved out in 2010.
Gosh, right.
So you were active in the business here from mid-90s?
96.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, 1996.
Yeah.
And I took over the shop and the catering.
Yeah, so almost 30 years.
And then the garden. Yeah. It's very interesting what happened here. A third son inherited when his two older brothers died.
In 1900.
In 1900s. Yeah. And he wasn't expecting it at all. Right. And he started off life in a farmhouse, and he was in the army. And after the First World War, he moved out of Scone Palace and moved to a villa in Perth, and he sold the family's London house, which was Kenwood House. And my husband's grandparents, when they first married, lived first of all in the at Balborty, which is the home farm, and then they moved to another house. And it was their decision in the 50s to move back into the palace.
Right.
So the palace was empty except for during the war when it was requisitioned as a girls' school. It was empty from the 1920s to 1950s.
Oh my goodness.
So a long time.
So when they decided to move back in the 50s,
yes,
was there a lot of work that needed to be done?
Massive, absolutely massive. Central heating, electrics,
Yeah, and we've lived with that for a long time.
Yes.
They did. We're lucky in ways. They did it to a really high quality. Yeah. So got copper wiring, which is still going strong.
Yes,
now.
Yes.
They had to sell some of the best French furniture to achieve moving back in. And I mean, a lot of their friends thought that they were mad. A lot of them said, all hail you for being brave enough to move back in. Mm-hmm. And they moved back in knowing that they were going to have to, knowing that they were going to have to open it to the public. And so they had vision to be able to open it to the public.
Because then all of a sudden your home becomes a tourist destination and you're sharing your home with strangers, if you like.
Totally. I mean, these were bedrooms.
These were
bedrooms. The house is built on a slope. You enter, the front door is on the ground floor on one side, but on the first floor on another side. Mm. So they had already decided when they moved in the 50s and opened in 65 that they would live on the ground floor and on the second floor. And all the reception rooms that they had on the first floor would be open to the public.
And then you've carried on, 100,000 visitors a year. But it's not just the visitor income. Of course, that's one element of many of these historic houses, is bringing the visitors, but that's just not going to cut it. You can't just be a house that opens up to the visitors and think, great, that's going to repair my roof. No,
it doesn't work like that. It's very difficult, and you have to decide which route you're going to go down. In the 60s and 70s, various people went down the safari park route.
Yes.
What one has to remember in Scotland is that the population isn't as big as it is down in England, so it's much more difficult. There's only 5 million people living in Scotland.
Right.
So we're much more reliant on the international market.
Yes.
Although we hope to make a shift there. We've got some development plans that will hopefully make us more of a local attraction as well as international.
Right, right.
And whatever you do has got to be elegant and has got to survive, the 100-year plan.
Yeah. I love that. That's so right. We're always talking about the 1 year, the 5 year, the 10-year plan, but it's the 100-year plan.
Yeah. You want your great-grandchildren to be proud of, what you did 100 years ago.
So what is your 100-year vision?
Well, it's been long in the coming and a long wait, because it's all to do with where you live and what's going on locally. Mm. And we've been waiting for the council and the government to decide where they were going to put the extension of the bypass.
And in many ways it's sad, because it's carving through the middle of the home farm, lovely bit of countryside, but at the same time it is good for the local ecosystem. It's really an environmental project. There's some bad pollution in Perth, but it will be good for us in terms of business. So it will transform our access, and locally that's a big opportunity.
What are your plans? Do you have ideas?
We have plenty of them, and some of them are sort of microcosms. Like Mum actually a few years ago came up with the idea for a dog event. That's Paws at the Palace, hugely popular, nice little event, and it reminds people locally that you come to Scone to have a good time. And that's something that we're very clearly trying to build. You come to Scone to have a good time in whatever you're doing. So there's sort of small but important sort of activities like that, and then that's all part of this bigger plan. So the bigger plan really revolves around that road coming in.
Yes.
And if we are given permission to do a big development in what's currently the rather dilapidated stable block, the destination building is definitely part of the plan.
Right.
And this is one of the interesting things, because 400 years later, I would say, you could say in 1950 we began, this is slightly harsh on the ancestors, but in 1950 we began to become a family business. Previously to that, we had been very successful generations, individuals who were extremely gifted in a certain activity. We had lawyers, diplomats, soldiers, whatever it was, but not really business people. I'm the first person in 400 years to have a business education, which is quite an interesting idea. And I think that's all geared towards my future here, because you really have to approach this as a business.
That's the costs.
Absolutely right.
The costs of the maintaining the building are massive, and also this building is made of sandstone, and it just happens.
Sandstone in Scotland.
It just happens to be what was the local stone at the time, but sandstone is not hardy.
And what the stone of destiny is made of.
Do you have a really good stonemason who basically you employ full time?
Well, hopefully, when we have the stable dock development and it's produced, hopefully that will create enough income to start working.
Of course, we are fortunate to be the custodians of these homes.
So the golden handcuffs.
Yes.
Yeah. Golden cage, however you want to describe it. Yeah. Incredible privilege. Awesome responsibility. But it is a responsibility. But for me, the balance is very much still positive and optimistic.
Yes.
You've got a job to do, but it's a great privilege to be in our position.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Thank you both so much for just sitting down here. Lovely scone. Thank you. It's really wonderful, but also just to chat and be very open about, again, the golden handcuffs.
Gilded cage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Fortified with tea and scones, time for some intrepid exploring.
So now we're going to have a quick little trip up to the roof. Sorry. Here it is.
Fantastic.
Here it is. So in we go.
Mine just out.
Okay.
Coming up.
Whoa. I thought you said we're going to the roof. This looks like
we have to get there. We have to get there first.
Another whole floor.
Oh my goodness. Look at me.
Please note the towels for the next leak.
Oh, always have to have those on hand. That's for sure. Do you have any buckets, Sophie?
Yeah. Here's the bucket. And here's a couple of really big buckets.
There you go. Excellent. Fantastic.
This is where me being the first member of the family, I think, is over 6 foot for a long time is not helpful.
Yes.
Right. Here we are.
Okay.
Steady as she goes, Mom.
Turret. Right, here we are.
Goodness. Okay.
Having a little look round.
Okay, here I come. Whoa. Whoa! You hear the peacock in the background. So this is, wow. I'm going around, 1 second. There we go. Woo! I'm gonna
Under. Much safer go
under.
Under.
It's quite a Mary Poppins.
Here we are.
A Mary Poppins scene.
It is. Oh my goodness.
Rooftops.
Oh my goodness. This is wonderful. So that was not what I expected going up on the roof. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. I've been on several roofs before of these historic houses, and yours is by far the most fun. That was the most fun.
Incredible view.
Where shall we start?
Yeah,
that's the Highlands
line. Where shall we start?
Okay,
That's the beginning of the Highlands.
so that's the Highland line there,
Yeah.
right?
So what's really fun, how good's your Shakespeare?
Oh, you're talking to the American, not that good.
Okay, well, there's Macbeth.
Yes.
And in Macbeth, he's told that he won't be killed until a certain wood moves to Dunsinane Hill.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
Dunsinane Hill is just hidden here, but that is Burnham Hill and Burnham Wood over there.
I do know that.
And the
Okay,
last word of that play?
was?
Scoon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The victor, thanks everyone. Thanks to All in One for coming here to see me crowned at Scoon. Curtain down.
Macbeth.
Yeah,
End.
Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Yep.
All right.
Oh my goodness, I hope you promote that to your visitors. And trees here.
Yes.
Yeah, got Queen Elizabeth just here.
Fantastic.
King of Sweden just here.
Oh my goodness. But what spectacular views. The flag I can see is flying.
Yes.
Is it always flying?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the arms of the Murrays of Scoon, the Earls of Mansfield.
Okay.
You've got the Murrays are the blue with white stars.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other bit is actually Berkeley, that goes back to 1400s.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been a real treat. Can I just whip up my phone real quick?
Yeah, sure.
And get a picture?
Don't drop it.
Yeah, no, I won't. Come
Better
on,
have a
everybody.
selfie.
Come on, everybody. Let's do it. Let's get that selfie. Let's turn it around. Okay, yeah. Sophie,
Go
in.
this way.
My glasses.
Let's get the
they
turret
got
in.
it.
So
There
it
you
looks like I'm in a real castle. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it.
One feature in the landscape at Scoon Palace is absolutely stunning. Many historic gardens have a maze, but this one is rather special. Designed in the shape of the star which features on the Murray family crest, this maze has a secret best seen from the air.
So this is your maze.
Yes. This is the maze, and it's about to get its annual haircut. You know, the boys will be in here next week, and it takes about 5 days to give it a haircut.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me it takes about 5 days to get through it.
It takes a full. It takes a full week to give it a haircut. So it's even more confusing now because it's so overgrown.
Okay, okay.
It's designed in the shape of a Murray star. It was my husband Mungo's idea, and it has been designed to represent tartan. So we've got 2 sorts of beach. We have regular beach, green beach, and we have copper beach. So when you look at it from above, it looks like tartan. So that's a lovely,
so clever.
lovely touch.
Very, very clever. And is this, you know, in one sense, looking at how we try to attract more visitors and giving them different experiences, is this one of your children attractions? And
Yes.
obviously adults as well, because I'm enjoying it very much, Sophie.
Absolutely. I mean, this is exactly what it was. You know, the idea was to give everybody a bit of fun.
Yes.
Elaborate.
And do you know the secret way through? Like, have you timed yourself? Can you do it in like 1 minute? Right?
I know how not to get lost if I stick to the rule.
Okay, is there a rule for not getting lost in mazes?
Is, but I don't think I'm going to be telling you this time.
So I just have to figure it out. Or I'm just going to follow you, Sophie. I'm just going to follow you. But wonderful. This is fantastic to have this. I mean, did your children growing up, did they sort of, you know, enjoy this?
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah.
All children absolutely love it.
Well, wow. I'm getting a bit dizzy because I'm in a maze. I mean, I'm trusting you, Sophie, that you are not going to get us stuck, that all of a sudden there's not going to be a headline newspaper tomorrow saying Lady Mansfield and Lady Hinchingbrooke lost in the maze at Scoon, please help. Right?
If we deviate from the rule, you can get lost for hours because it all looks the same.
It does. It really does. But how long did it take to erect?
It took about 8 years to get it established. And it was, this was originally called the Monks' Playground, because when this was an abbey, and it had lots of monks that lived here, and so this was always on the maps known as the Monks' Playground. And it was an area of tons and tons of wild daffodils. And it was doing nothing. Except in the spring when the daffodils came out.
Came out, and they're only out for a couple of weeks.
That's right. So now you still have all the daffodils coming out all around it.
Right.
but the maize is earning its keep.
Right.
All year round.
Right. Oh, bridge.
And
Does
here
that
we
mean
are under the bridge.
close?
Oh, we're getting very close now.
Oh, we're getting very
close now. We're about to come to the centre.
Oh, to the center.
The centre.
Okay.
You can have a little sit down now.
Oh my gosh.
Hello.
Whoa!
Hello, William.
It took forever.
I know we did. We did. It's my fault.
Slow.
It's my fault. It's my fault. Wow. Well, so this is like the centerpiece of the whole maze. Is that right?
Absolutely. And here we have Arethusa from Greek mythology. It was commissioned by my father-in-law, William VIII Earl, and David Wynne Ellis is the artist that created her.
Beautiful. And there's lots of pennies I see.
That's right. People put their wishes in.
Yeah, people putting their wishes in. Why? Hopefully she's granting them. Fantastic. What a wonderful day out, but also just a real treat. I was just saying to Sophie, it's great for children, but I had so much fun. I just had so much fun doing that. It was really brilliant. Next time though, I'm gonna pack a lunch. Because I would definitely get lost if I wasn't with you, that's for sure. All right, so how do we get out now?
With difficulty.
No, fortunately it's right beside the exit.
Woohoo! We made it to the end. We made it to the end. How fantastic.
Soon visitors to Scone Palace will have the chance to enjoy not only the maze, but the new stable block development. Sophie and William explained their vision, and wow, it is going to be spectacular.
Right, well, here we are in the old stable block. A very traditional Scottish stable block.
Absolutely.
Which has terrific potential for being converted in and loved and looked after.
Our next big project.
This is the big project. So obviously it was the stable block once upon a time. Are you using it for office space?
Multi-purpose.
Right now, and then the plan is thinking bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some accommodation here now. The gardening team have used it historically. General storage, the maintenance team. But obviously, the plan moving forward is for it to be very different.
Right. So what's the big vision here? I mean, this is, we talk about, when I meet with other historic house homeowners, it's always about sort of this legacy project. As you were saying, Sophie, for 100 years from now, you want this to be what?
The big vision here is to have a larger, nicer cafe with a larger, nicer kitchen that can produce really good quality food using our produce from the walled garden.
Right.
To have a larger shop. Scone is a long, thin, rectagonal building, and the shop and the cafe are both long and thin. So it would give us an opportunity of having a much nicer space and a more economically sensible space.
Right.
To have a viable space to have a cafe and a shop.
It's really the scale up and improve everything we do.
Yeah.
So in terms of tourism experience, ticketing, a new entrance,
Yes.
fully accessible for the local market as well as international market, food and retail hub.
I mean, this would be sensational. And then that means somebody like me, if I'm living locally, and let's say, okay, I've got young children or I've just dropped them off to school, I don't have to pay at the pay barrier to go into the palace or to enter. I could just come here, get my coffee, get my cake, get a little bit of lunch, meet my friends, and just enjoy a day out here with my friends.
Yeah, we will be offering a membership scheme for locals, because part of the plan is to put a really exciting outdoor venture playground in. And so local families will be able to join that membership scheme and access the venture playground as many times as they like.
Yeah, there will be a major transformation of our business.
Right, no, of course.
And we'll be able to go down the green route, being more sustainable by having a solar energy down hidden behind the trees in an area of the park that we don't use. So we should be able to power a lot more that way.
Brilliant.
Which will be really good
We
going forward.
have a lot of interest. You have to be realistic about it in terms of making it profitable, but we have an amazing walled garden, another project in itself. But we want that to supply as much as possible to here as well as just the estate. Sometimes that is too much work for the profit in it.
Yes,
And we want to slowly and surely try to build as much of that into it as possible.
Yes.
So if it's not grown here, it's going to be local otherwise.
Right.
And we're feeding into that sort of local, high quality
Of course, but this is a big space.
Yeah.
So you're thinking cafe, shop, but anything else, because it's vast, this space.
Yeah, big space. So the plan is a small area devoted to ticketing and as a new entrance into the historic areas itself.
Right.
This area behind us, which hopefully, if we're allowed to, will be doubled in size, will be the seating, sort of the restaurant essentially in there. My mother has been researching kitchens a lot, so hopefully, or Hell's Bell's big kitchen out there, and alongside that, a food and retail city hub here.
Wonderful.
And then a multi-purpose space here, if there's like a Christmas fair, or Christmas extension, with this being the typical tourism retail here.
Okay.
So tourists would flow through here, do their thing, and come out through this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And as far as timing goes, when, or is it still
we're pre-application now, i.e. the application has gone in, we got our first round of feedback. So hoping, if everything goes to plan, open 2025.
Right.
Exciting.
Amazing. Well, I will definitely come back and visit and have a wonderful black Americano with a scone, yes, here at Scone Palace when you open up this.
Yeah, exciting times.
Brilliant space. Very, very exciting. Well done. So exciting.
What an incredible visit, and I cannot wait to return and sample the delights of the new stable block development. Blair Castle is the ancestral home of the Athol family. Today, the castle and the 120,000-acre estates are managed by Sarah Troughton, alongside her son Bertie, who has promised to give me a tour of the interiors.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for coming.
Goodness.
Come on
Thank
in.
you so much for having me. And, okay, so let's start from the beginning here, Bertie. I've just arrived. This is the main entrance to the castle, is that right?
Yep, the main entrance to the castle, and as you kind of saw outside, very much the Victorian Scots baronial style of castellations, and this is one of the few rooms that the public will see that was also a later addition.
Okay.
So this is an 1870 room. The building is an evolving story, but the interiors are majority Georgian, and really spectacular Georgian interiors, but with this is a Victorian addition.
Right. And so the baronial, obviously Victorian baronial style here that I see on the outside, how did that come to be? This was then what you're saying, a Georgian house, if you like.
Yeah, partly through the employment of David Bryce as an architect, who was employed throughout the 1860s and 1870s to create a more exciting Victorian fairy tale castle appearance.
Right.
Because after the Jacobite wars of 1745 and all the political turmoil, the castle up to that point had very much been a castle. This was the last castle ever to be under siege in the UK. And politically, the family wanted to just be like, we're not going to cause you any trouble, we're very low-key people. So the castle became Athol House, which was a very dull Georgian facade.
Okay.
And then, mid-19th century, the railway arrived, new slug of money, friendships with the royals, always trying to keep up with Queen Victoria, you know, the usual story.
Yes, yes.
So then it was all about castellations and aggrandizement of the castle. And that's what you see outside, but you also see in this room.
Okay, wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
But I'll take you up the main staircase. We'll go into the dining room and have a look in there.
Blair Castle welcomes over 140,000 visitors each year, with 30 rooms in the castle open to the public. I could not wait to explore.
So Julie, this is the tea room. And we've got a big fan display in here at the moment because we were just amused by this idea of Georgians and even Victorians as well sitting around having their tea, flirting with their fans.
Right.
So different movements would mean different things.
What?
So if you were, you know, you might be sitting there having your tea, some chap over here might be trying to chat you up, but you would be having none of it and would be closing your fan and putting it to your right cheek, which would be like, enough with you, I'm engaged. Like, big on. Or you might open it and coyly play with your other hand, which might be, oh, I'm interested, you know, let's talk later.
Goodness.
Yeah. But then if your next meal would be in here, in the dining room. And
it's exquisite. Georgian again, yes.
Georgian again. And all this plasterwork throughout the castle took about 10 years, from 1740s and 1750s. And they spent a huge amount on the interiors after the 1745 uprising, when the exterior of the castle was made as dull as possible. They made the interior as lavish as possible.
Yes.
Thomas Clayton he was called the plasterer, and he was also doing Holyrood Palace at the same time.
Was he? Oh my goodness! I mean, it's just exquisite.
And then I guess these were the two outfits owned by the 6th Duke and Duchess, so that's sort of 1860s. They were the ones that were great friends with Queen Victoria.
Yes, yes.
And this is what they would have worn.
To dinner.
Tiny waist.
Yeah,
I actually could have eaten anything.
I mean, yeah, I know, exactly. Do you ever use the dining room? Christmas, big parties?
Well, it's 100 meters away from the nearest kitchen. So,
is it really?
Yeah. So it's not very practical. But occasionally we clear the table away and have a big party in here.
Right, okay, so it is used.
Yeah, and all these paintings are of scenes from around the estate.
Wonderful. Well, it's absolutely exquisite, and the Georgians just did know how to do interiors, didn't they?
Yeah, it's a good room.
Yeah, very good.
The exquisite dress on display in the dining room is one of a number featured throughout these rooms, each with their own beautiful story to tell.
Bertie, oh my goodness. So this is the drawing room.
This is the drawing room, and we've got 3 dresses on display here, dating from the Jacobite era. So this one is about 1750, just afterwards, which would have been roughly when this room was done up to be like this. Up until 1500s, 1600s, it would have been part of a banqueting hall.
Okay.
And then, the Georgians got at it and really went for it. And then the last dress over here is from the Queen Victoria era. So the 6th Duchess would have worn this. And if you look very closely, it's actually made out of, we think about 5,000 beetle wings.
What? What? No. Oh my goodness.
It was up in the attics for a good 100 years, all in tissue paper, with just a label with my grandmother had written costumes on it. And it was, so we only recently got them all out.
A find.
And we can only have them on display for a couple of years max.
Right.
And then we'll have to put them back into the tissue paper and conserve them.
Yes.
It's obviously an amazing room, but it also epitomizes this idea of Georgian hosting and hospitality. This room in particular tells the story of the 4th Duke and Duchess.
Right.
And the 4th Duke would fit in very well at Mapperton. He was known for planting trees. He was known as the planting Duke.
Okay.
He planted about 20 million, we think. So mostly on the southern bit of the estate, from Dunkeld all the way up, yeah.
He planted about 20 million trees.
Predominantly larch trees.
Wow. I can also see dotted around lots of sort of the coronets showing off, yes, they were powerful and mighty, and here's our coronet. And
here's our marble. I think they're also saying is that the marble on these tops and around the castle, this beautiful kind of greeny grey marble, is all from the local river, the River Tilt.
Right, so they didn't, head on over to Carrara and
No need.
No need. You have it right here. Who knew that you had marble right here? That quite exquisite marble right here in Scotland.
Well, Blair Athol is known as the gateway to the Highlands.
Yes.
And part of that is the big geological shift.
Right.
Where marble is then made.
Well, absolutely exquisite. And so again, I have to ask, do you use this as well?
Definitely. This room gets used for drinks receptions quite a lot. The furniture is too precious.
Right.
So is moved out. But then it is a big entertaining space.
Okay.
To hear more about some of the key moments of history here at Blair Castle, I met up with Sarah Troughton in the private library.
What is, of course, so beautiful about Blair Castle is not just the house itself, it's a beautiful castle, but where it is. This atmosphere of the Highland, the landscape, I mean, it's idyllic. It's so beautiful.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first bit of the castle was built in 1269, so that was a long time ago. And it was built where it was built because of the landscape, because this is where the Strath or wider valley becomes narrower as it becomes Glengarry, Garry being the river.
Yes.
And so in defensive terms, whoever controlled this spot controlled the gateway to the Highlands. It's played a major part in history. Its sighting over the years, Bonnie Prince Charlie, its army on the retreat north to Culloden was stationed here for a while. The Duke absented himself as he was a Hanoverian.
Right,
but his brothers were Jacobites, so there's a whole history there of the divided family, which is very typical.
Yes.
When Queen Victoria visited the Highlands, which I think the first time she came up was in 1842, she absolutely fell in love with the Highlands, which really start at Dunkeld, which is the sort of southern end of the estate. Then when she was feeling a bit weak after her birth of her second child, she decided to ask the Duke and Duchess if she could take over their house. And they had a very, very private visit here, which was exactly what she wanted. But the Duchess and Queen Victoria became very good friends and remained very close for the rest of her life. The Duchess was the mistress of the bedchamber, which was the sort of highest point in her household.
Duchess Anne is one of a long line of impressive women at Blair Castle. As a girl growing up here, Sarah remembers meeting Kitty, the 8th Duchess, in her apartments.
I can remember her. I was probably about 12 when she died.
Okay.
And I remember her as a charming old lady who could play the piano and would play anything I asked her to play on it. But before that, she'd been a very formidable lady. When she married the Duke, she was training to be a concert pianist and would have been a concert pianist. And she trained in Germany and spoke German fluently.
So roughly what period are we at right now?
Well, they married in 1899.
Right.
So she would have been training in the very end of the 19th century.
Oh my goodness.
Because she married, he was the Marquis of Tully-Barden then, but he was going to be the Duke. She gave up her career as a concert pianist and supported him, and actually never had any children. I think she just wasn't able to have children, which was a sadness.
Right.
But she made the most of her time, and she took up all sorts of good causes and then became quite political, and she became the first female MP in Scotland. And then she became the first ever female Minister of State. She was Minister of State of Education. And so she had a very sort of good political career. But when, in the 30s, when Hitler was first coming to power, she read, much earlier than most British people, she read his book Mein Kampf in German because she was so fluent in German. It was just as easy for her to read it in German. And she realised how very, very dangerous the Nazis were at that stage. So when Chamberlain went through appeasement and all that, she gave up the Conservative whip, along with actually Winston Churchill. But then Winston Churchill went back to the Conservative side and she didn't.
Yes.
So when the next election came along, she had to stand as an independent.
And then she didn't.
And she didn't get her seat. I mean, she very, very nearly retained it. She was a very highly intelligent lady. and a very determined lady. She was petite. She
Right.
was very small. And she took no trucks from
Small
anyone.
but mighty, small but mighty.
Small but mighty.
And in the meantime, she's married to the 8th Duke, is that right?
Yes. I mean, he was a very successful soldier up until towards the end of the First World War, when his father died and he actually became the Duke.
Right.
He then returned to Blair, and I think his primary concern was the estate. He was very well liked. He was obviously a very nice man. He wasn't a very efficient estate manager.
Okay.
The estate was in a lot of debt when he inherited it, and every attempt he made to get it out of debt was a failure, basically.
Right. Oh dear.
And so in the 30s, he went bankrupt.
Right.
But he was rescued by my great-grandmother, so he was never actually had to declare bankruptcy.
Oh my goodness.
So that was lucky.
The 20th century was a century of challenge and uncertainty for Blair Castle. But it was the women of the family who led the way in ensuring the survival of the castle and estate for the future.
The pioneer was really my great-grandmother. She insisted that it was her company that ran the place, and they got the house ready to open to the public, which
my
they did in
goodness.
1936.
In 1936.
Yes, it
so
was one of the very first ones to open. The 8th Duchess, Kitty, lived here on this floor, and at the far end of the castle, the 9th Duke, who was a bachelor, her brother-in-law, lived. And then in what's known as the South End, my family lived.
Okay.
My mother and my half-brother and
Right.
me. The sort of odd ménage à trois. You never knew at any mealtime when I was a child who might or might not turn up for it.
How brilliant.
But anyway, they all got along, and my mother ran the show. She was the one who was in charge.
Right.
And she was a very, very practical businesswoman, so she got things sorted out.
Right. Looking to the future, I'm always really interested as a fellow historic house owner. We're here as the custodians in order to make sure that these places survive for those future generations. And is that something, Sarah, that you do think about?
Yes, it is. I think I put it into two categories. There's one is the history, the castle, the artifacts, all that sort of thing that has to be preserved at all cost. But, it takes money to keep the roof on.
Yes,
so
it does.
obviously, I'm very pleased to have a lot of visitors. But then there's the other side of the business, which is much more business orientated. And you make sure that that's going to make enough money to keep the infrastructure of the place going, to provide decent jobs for people, as well as supporting the castle. I never think, shall we do the roof or shall we build a farm building?
Right.
The farm building has to pay for the farm building.
Right.
The roof has to be done however you get the money, even if you take it off, another successful part of the business.
So true.
And I mean, there's a big reward too in seeing happy visitors and people, I often walk through the rooms just as if I was a tourist.
Yes.
To visitors sort of look. And I really get quite a kick actually out of when I hear somebody discuss how lovely something is,
Yes.
or how well displayed it is, or you get nice feedback.
You do. Well, I'm a happy visitor. Well, I mean, what a wonderful, special place, but I'm a very happy visitor here, so thank you.
Good, well, I'm glad.
The attics at Blair Castle are off limits to visitors, but Bertie kindly agreed to show me the treasure trove of family history stored in the Warren of Rooms. Absolute heaven for me.
So, Julie, this is a section of the attics. There's probably over 60 rooms of attics.
What's amazing about these attics when you go to these historic houses, now this is history. Look at this.
It's wonderful, isn't it? we're now on the top third section of the attic. And these are the furniture rooms. This looks like chaos, but I assure you,
it doesn't. It doesn't look like chaos.
We know what's going on in here.
It looks like going into an antiques furniture.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just brilliant, Bertie.
You'll love these bits around here. So Julie, this room is quite good at giving you a picture of how the castle sort of operated in the 19th century.
Right.
So this is how all the rooms would have been lit through these little gas-fired lights and bulbs.
These ones as well?
Yeah, even the little ones.
They're beautiful.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
And then in about 1905, we built a hydro power station. And then in 1951, the castle went on to mains electricity.
Right, mains electricity,
so
right.
decommissioned that. So this would have, but throughout probably the Victorian era,
yes,
this is exactly how everything would have been lit.
Right. And I mean, it's just interesting to see how, of course, right here, just in this room, you can actually visualize how the castle has evolved to modern day electricity and looking what it was, during the Victorian era and where we are today.
Although there's a lot of things up here, all the best stuff is obviously downstairs and open to the public.
Yes.
But, we can't show everything the whole time. So it's that balance between conserving some stuff, showing stuff, and keeping the stories fresh and interesting.
But I guess it also gives you that opportunity to sort of change it up on what you're displaying for the public.
Well, Julie, I think you'll like it in this room because it's full of obscure old treasures.
Yes.
He's got everything from a cannon wheel, old whiskey stills, to pots and pans, to travelling chests. There's quite nice old telephones in here.
There certainly are. You could have a whole telephone exhibition.
We should.
Don't you think so? This is incredible.
The castle was the first building in the area to get a telephone. So you'd call up the operator and you'd say, just give me number 1.
Right.
Right. Number 1 in Blair Athol.
Right.
And it was the only line, and it would come through here.
Hi there, just calling from Blair Castle in Scotland. I was just wondering if you could connect me to Mapperton in West Dorset.
Connecting you now, madam.
Oh, perfect. I mean, that's amazing.
So there's so many things in here, Julie. We've got Duchess Louisa's medicine cabinet in there.
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Thank you. I feel very honored.
I'm clutching this little trumpet, which I should put back.
It's quite sweet. It's really sweet. Look at this. This is unbelievable. No. Right?
So your kind of Victorian ailments would have been...
There.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I wonder what's in there.
Yeah, I know. This is incredible. This is absolutely beautiful. Look at the velvet there and the leather case. It's beautiful.
I bet you like that one.
Okay, this says, last gentleman, please close the box. Okay, what is this box?
It's a party box.
Oh, it is. Wow. Look at gin, whiskey, sherry, brandy. I mean, whiskey is sort of the drink of Scotland, isn't it?
Not only Scotland, but Blair Castle is the home of Keepers of the Quake, which is the world, mecca of whiskey. Quake is the wonderful little silver bowl that you drink whiskey from.
Okay.
And houses like Blair would have made their own whiskey. We always knew that we had this very old whiskey in the cellars.
Okay.
And we recently sent it off to be carbon dated because we had the plaques and the signs with it saying it was from 1841. And we tasted, my dad and I drank it, and it was amazing. And we sent it off, and it's come back carbon dated as, it's authentic. So we think it's the oldest Scottish whiskey in the world. And, Queen Victoria was coming and staying in 1844. So we're pretty sure that when Dad and I were tasting this whiskey, it was the same whiskey that Queen Victoria drank.
Yes, this is my favorite find so far.
And if there's any left, we'll have a drink.
I certainly will.
So only 60 more rooms to show you.
Okay.
Blair Castle is encircled by beautifully tended gardens and mature trees. But beyond, the drama of the Highlands beckon. Where better to catch a glimpse of the scale of the Athol estates than high up on the roof of the castle?
Oh my goodness!
It's the oldest part of the castle, I think dating back to 13th century. And then you've got Cairngorm National Park, kind of all that way. And then the more managed landscape immediately around the castle, which you can see.
Okay, oldest part of the castle here. And how long a period did it take to build the castle that we see today?
It's never one period. It's an evolved design. And it's a design that started from the period of the Crusades, was essentially a land grab.
Right.
And then you've got Cummins Tower, which we're on now. It's kind of 13th century, and expanded a lot into sort of medieval halls in the 15th and 16th century. And then with the Victorian era and this craze across Scotland of kind of baronial castellations is really the look of the castle, the exterior look of the castle today. So the outside is a complete is a mishmash of 750 years.
I mean, how wonderful. You know, I'm looking out on this incredible landscape, but I think times are evolving as well with what we're seeing out in the landscape and what sort of our forebears did with it. We're having to rethink. And is that what you're doing as well? Are you looking at this thinking, right, I am managing thousands of acres, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, I think the conception of what is a wild landscape is changing. And, you know, you're doing rewilding at Mapperton, and we're taking a similar approach, but for this landscape, I guess.
Right, yes.
In terms of afforestation, so we're creating a lot of native woodlands on quite a large scale. We're probably hoping to plant 2 million trees in the next 3 years, and then try and do some more of that. And also up here, a lot of these hills are peatland, where you can't grow trees, and they would have been drained either in the Victorian era or even under the 1960s government schemes. So we're doing a lot of peatland restoration, which essentially means re-wetting peatland.
Yes.
But both of those things, the afforestation or the peatland restoration, create a lot of increase in biodiversity, which is a very nice thing. So you hopefully will see a lot more birds, wildlife, flora and fauna, and generally kind of healthier thing, as well as being carbon storage sinks.
Yes, exactly.
And then with the farming, we're very taken with the regenerative farming principles, which is essentially the healthier you can make your soils, the better farming you can do. And by better farming, we really mean by having zero inputs. So we're not trying to put any chemicals on the ground or medicines in the animal. And you know, that's not something where you can draw a line and it happens overnight. Right. But there's been a big, I say, cultural change, and we're really excited about it, because I think it's the right thing to do, but it also feels like you're connecting farming with nature rather than just exploiting soil.
That's exactly right. And I think it's the same at Mapperton. It's about finding the right balance. So, and it's looking at ways, you know, that we can rewild at Mapperton, in particular, those farms that are marginal farmland, but at the same time, keeping farms in hand that, again, are for food production, but also going down that model of regenerative farming and looking in particular at the health of the soil and how important that is. And
it's all about knowing what's right for that bit of land. I think with all these historic houses, there's always a big connection between the land that is around the house, and both in a managed sense, often like the immediate policy grounds or parkland, but then particularly in Scotland, in the Highlands, as you get out into the mountains, having a story that relates the house to the land, I think, is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. I also just want to note, I love the Scottish flag there.
The Athol estates have a long tradition of woodlands management, as well as commercial forestry. I met up with Georgie Pelly, native woodland consultant, to hear more about how the ancient woodland here is being revived.
So Georgie, you've been here working with Athol Estate for some time now, is that right?
Yeah, the last 3-4 years or so we've been engaged with the estates.
And what's your role in this beautiful landscape here?
Yeah, so we came in to help the estate sort of take, shift their woodland management into a different phase. So at Athol, they have this really extraordinary history of forest management in Scotland, where they've really contributed to the development of forestry. Really since the 17th century, they were a place renowned for their forestry. And that's sort of going right back to some kind of quirky characters where one of the dukes was so intent on expanding the forest that he would spray seed across hillsides with cannons.
What? So he would literally shoot a cannon out that was filled with seed.
That's the story. That is the story.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so just finding these really innovative ways of expanding the forest at Athol.
Right.
So there's thousands of hectares now that are established, really quite diverse commercial woods at Athol. And a few hundred years ago, they were bare hills.
Okay.
So they have this real tradition of transforming the landscape here, of really taking and changing the landscape through forestry, through new woodlands. And in the past, that's been with this focus on commercial species of growing timber.
Right.
Now it's a slightly different shift, and
Yeah.
it's going more towards this ecological restoration.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a real change.
So it's how fascinating, and it's almost, I mean, if I don't mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is this real shift across the country in going back to this nature recovery, right?
Absolutely.
And farming same way, right?
Absolutely.
So nature recovery, regenerative farming.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're seeing that real shift across Scotland. Here at Athol, they're making that move. It's not to say they're moving entirely away from commercial forestry, it's still part of the picture. But
trying to find the balance.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's why we're working in areas like this where we have these sort of remnants of native woodlands.
Yes.
With these sort of key species.
Where they're dotted around.
Mm-hmm. And you can see where trees have been lost, and you have that retreating canopy cover. So the footprint of the forest has been shrinking over the years just through different land uses. And so this is about bringing that shift where we start to regenerate that land to allow these woodlands to regenerate and create more expansive areas of woodland habitat that link up and bring all these different benefits that we know we do.
Right, exactly. Biodiversity,
Absolutely.
all of that. So when I'm looking to my left here and you can see these sort of native, these are native, right?
These are native trees.
You think, gosh, what can I do with this? Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's evidence of the way the land's been used, for lots of different reasons, but it's been grazed by sheep and deer.
Yes,
and that's part of the picture here, but it's just about trying to maybe shift that balance a bit now so that these woodlands are not lost entirely. I mean, what we see up this glen, up Glen Tilt, these remnants, they're probably the remnants of the first forest to come in post-glacial times,
Right.
So the genetic continuity of maintaining the trees that we have now and avoiding losing them.
Yes.
There's sort of that key genetic material that if we lose it, it's gone.
It's gone.
And that's that whole, sort of journey through from the glacial time.
Yes.
So
incredible, and it's about trying to preserve that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when I also look to my right, though, I can see sort of dotted around sort of bundles of logs. Is that you as well?
Yeah, this is quite a big piece of the picture that we're trying to shift in this glen. So this is the start of a really large scheme, a new planting scheme, a native woodland scheme.
Right.
So that's the first evidence of the fence line coming in, and that will be a deer fence. So we'll be excluding deer from quite a significant area.
Yes.
For the first sort of 20, 30 years, really, to allow those trees to establish fully in that time.
Wonderful.
And for a scheme like this, it's we're talking about sort of 500 hectares or so in size.
Yes.
And sort of 400, 500,000 trees.
Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Because as much as we love deer, they can be quite damaging to, again, new life.
Absolutely, that's it. They do naturally browse on these seedlings that are coming through, and they just If where that happens repeatedly, those trees just won't quite
quite
grow. Exactly, they won't make it. So it's just especially somewhere where we're establishing a lot of new seedlings. It's not just relying on the natural regeneration. There's areas where we don't have that seed source, so we come in, we plant seedlings, and we have to protect them.
And you have to protect them, right? So you're really helping and aiding in this recovery of nature.
Absolutely, that's what it's about. Yeah, really trying to kickstart those natural processes again, bring the trees back into the landscape in these areas, and then all the benefits that they're associated with. Like, as you said, the biodiversity, really focusing in on the soils and how they develop. The water moving through the landscape.
Exactly.
I think it's really interesting here at Athol. It is looking for a balance. Genuinely, it's not a full shift from the traditional land use to just full rewilding. It's somewhere where they're trying to find a balance between different land uses. Still have the farming, still have your stocking, but have your woodlands and expand them as well within that wider picture.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, thank you, Georgie. This is brilliant. Well, gosh, if I could come back here in about, 20 to 30 years, and I might see
a significant difference.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely all about balance, protecting new plant life and controlling the deer population who majestically roam these hills. Highland ponies have long worked and been bred on the Athol estates, their bloodline dating as far back as the 1860s. Both Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth II were passionate about these beautiful but hardy ponies. I joined Gilly, Campbell's String, out on the hills to hear how these plucky ponies are upholding Highland traditions.
Okay, Campbell, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And who do we have here?
This is Huey and this is Lovett.
Huey and Lovett. Wow, okay, so do they want to be walked? Should we start walking?
Yeah, let's start walking,
okay.
Yeah. This one's a bit of an impatient one, he's only young.
Okay, I have never been this up close and personal to a Highland pony before, so this is very exciting for me, but they're lovely creatures, aren't they?
Aye, lovely, gentle creatures.
Yeah, oh, so I can, happy to...
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wow. So tell me a little bit about Highland ponies. I mean, they're a real staple here in the sort of the Highlands, yes.
Aye, they're very traditional in the deer stalking world. It's the oldest and most traditional way of taking shot deer off the hill.
Okay, and that's what they're doing. Is that what these are for? 'Cause I saw these saddles and I thought, oh my goodness, has Campbell put them on? Are we going for a ride?
No, these are traditional deer saddles. There's not much padding to them, as you can probably hear. They're made of basically really, really hard leather to cope with the weight of a very heavy stag on it.
Of a very heavy stag,
They can be upwards of 144, 150 kilograms. Right. They're very heavy.
Ooh, is it now? Okay. This one, Lovett likes to. Yes.
Aye, he's only 5. He's quite young.
He's only 5. Oh my gosh, he's sweet. Okay, so when you're culling the deer, putting them on the back of these Highland ponies, yes?
Yes.
But there is a purpose around culling the deer, isn't there?
Yeah, it's just if you have too many deer, you won't have any plant life.
Right.
The deer will eat it all. You won't have any trees. You'll have none of that. So it's just to keep a natural balance within because the deer have no predators.
Right, of course. There's the wolves are gone.
Yeah.
And we are here in beautiful Scotland. It's just green, it's luscious, and keeping a healthy balance, if you like, of the population is brilliant for regeneration, right? Because that's what the deer can damage landscape, can't they?
They can damage a lot of landscapes, but also help a lot as well.
Right.
With keeping plants unwanted, non-native invasive species down. They're very good at that. So last thing anyone wants is no deer there.
And this is really the job of the Highland ponies, is that right?
Yes, it's taking shot deer off the hill is their main purpose. On some estates in Scotland you do a bit of grouse shooting. Right. So sometimes they'll go with panniers, which are big wicker baskets that sit on the side of the ponies, and you'll take slunge up the hill and take the shot grouse back off the hill with them. Because there's huge, vast places in Scotland you can't get a machine to.
Yes, no, of course. So you've got to have, it's like the good old days.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
Yeah, no machinery, Just good old ponies, but I mean, so sweet. Well, listen, Campbell, thank you so much for explaining this to me, and it was so wonderful to meet Huey and Lovett. And I think that they are very hungry right now because they've both sort of nosed down into the ground.
They're always hungry.
They're always hungry.
They're always eating. If they're not walking, they're eating, or they're walking and eating.
Back at the castle, I met up with Andrew Bruce Wooten to understand more about the wider estate and also an ingenious renewable energy project.
So tell me a little bit more about the wider estate.
Well, the castle is obviously the hub, it's the heart of the estate, and it's what a lot of people think about when they think of Athol, this big white castle off the A9. But it's just the centre of a large spiderweb of activity, which includes all the traditional enterprises you'd think of, like farming and forestry and deer and housing, with a lot of housing, provision of housing to the local economy. And now increasingly tourism. So lots of people, which is fantastic. A lot of them are just enjoying the wide open spaces, which they're free to do.
Yes.
And then a lot of them stay on the estate and they make it their holiday destination. And then others come and enjoy the castle, and either for the day, or they might get married here, or they might have a business event here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're open to all business.
One of the big projects I know that you have going on is sort of looking at different ways to power. Is that right? To power different houses on the estate? And tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in the UK there was generally a big drive to smaller scale renewable energy in the last 20 years. And an opportunity came our way to look at hydro. And the estate has a history with hydro because we had a hydro scheme in the early part of the last century that powered the castle before mains electricity arrived here.
Right.
So, you know, we knew a thing or two about hydro to begin with. So we've developed 5 schemes on Athol, which we're totaling about 3 megawatts. So not vast, but it's decentralized green energy, which is going into the grid. And at the castle, it's actually fully powering the castle before it goes into the grid.
So it had been here on the castle, what, for 100 years? Before it went on the mains?
Well, funnily enough, it was developed, as I say, in the early part of the last century, but it didn't have a huge long life before mains electricity came in. So we could use the pipeline, we can use the intake, we could use the powerhouse. All we had to do was buy the turbine and the generator. And in fact, the turbine and generator manufacturer that produced the original 100 and something years ago, still in existence.
No.
Yeah, so we've got the same manufacturer, modern technology, but basically the same turbine as was there 100 years ago. So yeah, it's grand.
Fantastic.
Come on in.
Okay. This is it.
Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness, I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can definitely, it's behind here, is that right?
It's a labour of love.
I clocked the sign out there, 1908.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's when it was first here, is that right?
Yeah, it provided power to the castle, only in very early days of electricity, and it provided power from about 1908 to just after the Second World War.
So really pioneering, right?
Completely,
yeah. Incredible.
Anyway, be prepared.
Okay. Be prepared for the beast. Oh my goodness! Wow. Fantastic. Tell me just a little bit about this design.
Yeah, so it's produces about 81 kilowatts of power.
Right.
It's got a high efficiency of about 55%, which is pretty good. It's got about 10 bar of pressure, so it's taking water off the hill. Instead of a river input, it's taking water off a ditch system on the hill, which makes it incredibly efficient. And it comes down through a 500 millimeter pipe, the old original pipe, to this point where it gets squeezed into that 300 mil pipe, and then squeezed even more, and then pushed into a turbine through jets. And that's what rotates the turbine.
Right, and that's what we're hearing.
And that's what you're hearing.
That's what we're hearing. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Andrew. What a treat. to see this and just to see how
Pleasure.
we've evolved, or you've evolved, but you've come back.
And there are schemes like this that are still going 100 years more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this come back in 100 years, it'll be here.
Incredible. That's what we like to see. Thank you, Andrew.
An iconic image of the Scottish Highlands are Highland cattle grazing the hills. And at Blair Castle, they are part of the bigger picture of regenerative agriculture.
Gordon, it's so nice to meet you.
And you.
I've heard through the Blair Castle grapevine that you've been here for quite some time.
Yes.
Is that right? How long?
39 years.
30. Okay, no. So can we just pause for a second, because I do have slight fear of cows. I just thought I would mention this.
Yeah, they're fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry.
Okay, but those look quite pointy and sharp.
You just keep with me and you'll
Okay, I'm
be
going to
fine.
keep with you. Oh my gosh. Okay.
In fact, you
but
could
can
probably
they smell
just
my
stroke
fear?
her, see? No.
So can I give them a... Should I close this gate?
Yeah, just come in.
Okay.
Yeah, she's fine. The other one's a wee bit more temperamental. She'll not bother you, but she'll just not come to you.
Okay.
This one is different.
Okay, great. When I look at these Highland cows, look at how sweet they are. This is what you expect to see when you come to Scotland, right?
Yeah.
So
more and more now. Stop it.
More and more now, and why is that?
Because we use them for different systems now. We can put them out in the hill. The whole idea here now is to maybe get another 10, and they put collars on them, and then they put them on the hill. You've got to remember, in Scotland, these were the main thing many years ago. It was all Highland cows, because they're easy care. They're great. They're actually lovely animals.
They are lovely, but no one seems to be coming towards my hand. Is that okay?
Yeah, she'll come. Look, if I take that bucket away.
Okay.
Yeah, put your hand out.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Oh.
She's fine. She'll not bother you.
Okay.
Okay. The two here.
Here we go.
There you go. There you are. That's better.
All right. Okay.
Now they'll come in. This one here, she's a bit more.
Okay, I'm going to stand behind you there, Gordon.
There you go.
Right. So you're here on the estate, and you look after these lovely animals.
Yeah, these and another 150 cows and calves, and
you've been here for 39 years. You must have seen a lot of changes.
Yeah, an awful lot of changes. When I came here, there was 11 people on the farm. Now there's basically 2 on the farms. So the farm's changed over the years. Systems have changed. We were in organics, so we were trying to do something different there.
Right.
But now the future is regenerative agriculture.
That's right, regenerative farming.
We're doing something different, yeah.
Can I do that? Is that okay?
Of course it is.
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
So yeah, changing times. So we've all seen change throughout the world, and there'll be a lot more changes to come, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I have to say, it's really exciting to see these up close and personal. Okay, what was that?
Oh, they're just having fun.
Okay.
You're okay. Don't panic.
Okay. Gordon, can I just add that for the first time in a really long time, I feel more relaxed around cattle than ever before. So you must have your good energy of calmness is, it's affecting me. It's wearing off on me. It's brushing off on me.
I'm glad to hear it.
What's your special power?
It's just the ability to read cattle, really read the way they are, the way they react to things, It's it's a knack you pick up over years, It's just the same when they're going to calve, when they're going to calve.
Yeah.
It's just something you learn, and when you do learn it, they know that you know.
Right.
It's all right, they're just coming for the bucket,
Yeah,
you'll
that's
be fine.
Okay. Thanks, Gordon.
Life's about fun, isn't it?
It is about fun, and gosh, I've really relaxed now. Now I feel good.
See, I'll just leave you here, you'll be fine. I'll come back in the morning, you'll still be here.
In 1842, just 5 years after she ascended to the throne, Queen Victoria visited Scotland for the first time. And 2 years later, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert returned to stay at Blair Castle. In the private library of the castle, Sarah Troughton explained more.
So Queen Victoria, 1844, she's here. This is before Balmoral, is that right? And is it because of her stay here that she decided, right, I want a residence in the Highlands as well?
Yes, I think she was very, very influenced by Prince Albert. We loved it and immediately saw a connection between here and the German landscape. And if you go, there isn't a public road, but there's a very good footpath. If you go up Glen Tilt, I think it's about 30 miles to Balmoral if you take that route.
Oh my goodness!
But there's a famous picture of them, which is actually at Balmoral. We've got one or two of the sketches of her crossing the Taff, which was one on a pony, which is one of the rivers she had to cross in order to go on her way. There's a bridge now, but there wasn't in her day. And she's on a pony with her skirts lifted up, but her two pipers are waist deep, still piping as they cross in front of her. And the poor pony boy and everybody else. It was quite a sort of funny picture, really.
Right. And also, I think this visit really helped to establish their love of the Highlands, and that's why we have Balmoral. People then wanted to come and go up north and visit because of the impact that I think Queen Victoria has made here in Scotland.
I think that's right. I think the timing was good. I mean, the whole Jacobite rebellion and, you know, banning tartan after that, which was only ever half banned, actually.
Right,
A lot of it's made of the fact it was banned. All that was in the past.
Right.
I mean, it was 100 years in the past. So
yes,
people were ready to appreciate the Highlands.
Yes.
And the Highlands have become a lot more modern by the Victorian era.
Right, right.
And were part of Britain, very firmly part of Britain. And I think that it was just the ready moment for more travellers and more people to appreciate it.
And to be able to experience the beauty of the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, definitely.
In her diaries, Queen Victoria described the bold, wild scenery and how she and Prince Albert would drive out in the carriage along Glen Tilt, through woods overhanging the river. Details of the royals' stay at Blair, together with centuries of historic family documents, are kept secure in the archives of the castle. Sarah and I met archivist Kieran Guthrie, and Sarah shared a chilling moment in the recent history of the castle.
Wow. There you go. This area of the castle, known as the Clock Tower, clocks above us, was burnt down in 2011. There was a fire. Under here used to be where the old wood chip boiler was working.
Yes.
And all the wood chip and the auger and the oil boiler to back it up. And the flue went up the tower, and it overheated and caught light to the rafters. And it was so high up, the heat for quite a long time didn't set off an alarm. And in fact, somebody saw it, luckily, because it was about 8 o'clock at night. Somebody who lives over there saw it. And then my dog was very anxious.
Right.
When I went to let him out, I saw these flames leaping out, terrible.
How long did it take to put out the fire, and did the fire spread, or was it contained?
Amazingly, unfortunately, was contained in the area of the boiler below and the clock tower. When we came here, my husband absolutely insisted on putting on fire doors everywhere. He said that's very vulnerable, that area. And thank God they'd been installed, and it did keep the fire into just this area.
Right.
And you know, the archives in those days was stored up at the other end of the castle.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because here I am in the archive room, and I was thinking, oh dear, the archives, but they were stored, in a different location.
Fortunately.
Oh, thank goodness. When you rebuilt this, How long did it take to rebuild? Because I know, these things take such time, especially at these historic houses.
It wasn't too bad. I think we obviously had to clear everything with the insurance, but I think it was about just over a year before we had this up and running.
And during that period, is that when you decided to move the archives in here and make this the new archive space? How did that come to be?
Yes, we decided immediately that any boiler we had in future was not going to be in the castle. It would be out in an outbuilding. Obvious decision. And then so then obviously, what are we going to do with this? And we had all sorts of thoughts, but I'd always been nervous of the archives where they were before, because there was a flat above them, a domestic flat above them. And I thought it only takes someone to have the bath or overflow or leaking pipe.
Yes.
And things wouldn't have been very good. So we just thought, right, a purpose-built archive, a visitor's room where we are now, properly temperature controlled.
Yes, I can feel that. I can feel the temperature right when I walked in.
And actually, I think it was a good decision.
Yeah. No, brilliant.
The castle holds archives of the royal visit in 1844, with the friendship of Queen Victoria and Lady Glenlyon, later the 6th Duchess of Atholl, recorded in private correspondence.
Throughout their lives, they wrote letters back and forward to each other. And we have all these letters that Queen Victoria wrote to her. And they're friends' letters. They're not political letters.
Right.
They're just two ladies writing about their families.
And how would they address one another? I'm just curious.
The Queen addresses her as Dear Duchess.
Oh, she does. So they were very close.
Very close. The 6th Duchess of Atholl was mistress of the robes or the bedchamber.
Okay.
And Queen Victoria actually sent Duchess Anne this drawing that she had done, explaining how she would like her train carried. We can see it's come from Buckingham Palace. Yes. A lot of the letters are edged in black, and we know this is after Prince Albert had died.
Right.
When she visited the castle in 1844, we have this house book here, which was kept by the housekeeper, and it lists all of the people that she brought with her.
No.
So these are all of the staff she brought with her.
It says at the bottom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel it says 114 total. That can't be right.
No, that is. And when you think this was a quiet family holiday.
Oh my goodness.
And she brought her
It's like a whole community. Yep. It's like village.
She brought her upholsterer, just in case.
What? I noticed the piper as well, of course. Hairdresser.
She has a pastry chef, a confectioner.
A roasting cook.
Three just normal cooks.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Those were the days that no longer exist. But fantastic that you've got this incredible record. Now, when you were opening up with that book, I did just spot this. It says private, keep this locked up.
So this is the letter from Lord Glenlyon to Lady Glenlyon about a private visit of Queen Victoria to the castle.
In 1844?
In 1844. So the same visit we see here.
Okay. Do you mind if I read a little passage here? Okay, it says, I have the very greatest pleasure and heartfelt satisfaction in placing the castle of B, Castle of Blair, is that right?
Yes.
And the forest of A, Atholl, entirely at Her Majesty's disposal for any length of period she may do me the honor to make use of it. So, wow, this is it. Absolutely incredibly special.
The enjoyment and privacy of Queen Victoria's stay at Blair Castle in 1844 was so treasured that the monarch bestowed a special honor on the men of the Atholl estates who had guarded the royal party. Bertie Troughton and I met up with Regimental Sergeant Major Graham Jack of the Atholl Highlanders to hear about royal connections and the history of the regiment.
Can you give me a little bit of the history and the origins of the Atholl Highlanders?
We go back so far in history. We were at Culloden. We were signed up to go to America in 1777.
Were you?
The American Wars, yes.
Oh
There
my
was
gosh, wow.
200 local men and 1,000 other recruits, all ready to go from Glasgow.
Right.
And the war ended in America.
Yes.
So our 12 companies were distributed through Ireland, and we were there for very nearly 6 years.
Okay.
And we were going to fight in India, and there was a problem with the men because there was no re-engagement bounty, and there was almost a mutiny.
Right.
And in 1783, we were disbanded.
Were you? Oh my goodness.
Disbanded.
Disbanded.
Not wearing what we're wearing today.
Okay.
This has all come about through Lord Glenlyon,
Okay.
later the 6th Duke. And the uniform you see today, with the exceptions of the white on the sleeves and the collar and the stockings, was the same uniform he put together for a retinue of men to go to Ayrshire for the Eglinton tournament.
How fantastic.
1839 it started, and that was it. So in 1842, Queen Victoria,
Yes.
this is our first touch with Queen Victoria, and Prince Albert were going to Taymouth Castle. Now, to get to Taymouth Castle, boat from Edinburgh to Dundee, coach from Dundee to Taymouth Castle.
Okay.
So they had to come by coach to Dunkeld. Now, Lord Glenlyon was aware this was happening, and he put out an invitation to Queen Victoria to have lunch in Dunkeld. So very early that morning, he set off from the castle here, and on his way to Dunkeld, he picked up retinues of supporters. And by the time he got to Dunkeld, if I'm correct in saying, there was 977 men.
No. Right. All to meet the Queen?
To meet the Queen.
Right. Incredible.
In Dunkeld. And there he entertained Her Majesty and Prince Albert to lunch. And she asked if any of the men could dance. And some of the men could dance. So they danced reels for Queen Victoria at Dunkeld. So that was the first time we'd ever met Queen Victoria.
Okay.
But this was before she started to look for a property in Scotland.
Okay.
She was looking for a castle in Scotland. She fell in love with Scotland.
Right.
The beauty.
Of course.
The people.
Who
people
wouldn't?
like us that she met. It was just wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just 2 years later, in September 1844, when Queen Victoria and Prince Albert stayed at Blair, the Atholl Highlanders protected the royal family at the castle.
We had a guard at the front of the castle, and there was an officer and men 24 hours a day throughout the whole of her stay. And it was that friendship shown to her that brought about colours being presented to the Atholl Highlanders.
Right.
So we have colours today which
Yes.
are replicas of those first colours.
Yes.
And these were signed off and presented to the Atholl Highlanders the following year in 1845, and it gives us the right to bear arms in the Queen's defence.
That is incredible. And so that was quite an honour, is that right?
Very much
During
an
that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's why the Atholl Highlanders are often referred to as the only private regiment or the only private army in Europe, because of the Queen's colours that we have.
Because of the Queen's colours.
You've got to come and see the Atholl Highlanders in the end of May, when we have the Atholl gathering.
Absolutely,
Because on the Saturday there's the full military parade, and it's, you know, we're about 100 men, including the band.
How magnificent. No, I definitely will come back. Now, you did mention something here, Bertie, and you said we. Now, I heard that we. So, are you involved? What's the connection here? I mean, I don't see any dress here, but I'm assuming.
No,
you have one.
I am in the Atholl Highlanders. I'm a very low-ranked officer. Yeah.
Lieutenant Bertie Troughton.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I don't look half as smart as Graham. I try, but...
So, can you describe to me sort of the ranks?
So, officers will start at lieutenant,
Yes.
captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel. That's the way it goes, and the colonel is duke.
Okay. Right.
which is Bruce Murray, and he lives in Africa now.
Right,
but
right.
When I started service, it was the 10th Duke. It was Bertie's great uncle, Ian.
Uncle. Yeah.
Yes,
Uncle.
yes.
It was him when I joined in 1977.
Okay, incredible.
I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
I'm in with the bricks now.
You're coming up to 50 years.
Yeah, coming up to
Coming
that,
up to
yeah,
50
yeah,
years.
yeah.
Now, can we just talk about this? This is spectacular. Okay, first of all, this is your, this is the Murray Tartan.
Page,
Right,
yeah.
so this is the Murray Tartan. I mean, it's beautiful. I would quite like that.
These are unique. This dates to 1839, this particular plaid. These plaids are made of linen. They're not wool, it's
Right,
a linen
I did,
cloth.
when I touched it, I
and
felt...
they're very different.
Yeah, it's a thick linen.
Yes,
Very thick
yes,
linen.
very much so,
Yes.
very much so. These are in the original. So you cannot replicate the colours if you look.
Yes, yes, I see.
There is the new colours, this
Yes,
is the old colours. You
colours,
cannot replicate that anymore. They are so old, and when you think of how many people have had this plaid,
Lovely, yes.
pleated,
Yes,
battle
absolutely.
wounds in it.
Yeah, yeah, you can see the battle wounds. It's incredible.
The plaid that you saw the old Highlanders wearing was a long piece of cloth. They laid it on the ground, they rolled into it, and a waist belt, pulled the waist belt through, pulled a bit over the shoulder to give you the same look as I have,
Yes.
but without all the paraphernalia, because I can't dress myself.
Very similar
I
to
need
how
somebody to
dressed
dress me.
this afternoon. Roll them up in it.
I was wondering what was taking so long. Now I know. Now I know.
So that is why, you know,
Right,
that
yes.
is the plaid. And if it's put on properly, the back should look like an eagle's wing.
It looks exactly like an eagle.
Yes, it does.
So if you think
he's put it
if
on
you think
properly.
of a bird of prey with its wings closed,
Yes,
that's how the back should look.
Yes.
Straight down the middle of the back.
yes. Bertie, well done. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
No, I wouldn't say it was perfect, but he's trying.
How magnificent. Now, can I just can we move
Oh,
up
yeah.
here?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Where would you like to start?
Well, yeah.
The juniper?
Yes.
Okay. Juniper is a bush plant which grows prolifically on the estate. This is a wild version of the juniper, and it does grow around. There's bushes at the top there.
Right, yes.
That's juniper bushes there. It's a very jaggy,
Yeah, it is.
very jaggy
Yeah.
material. Right. So
Yes.
when you've done your training,
Yes,
and
and the
on the
Duke
day,
says yes.
on parade day, you will be presented with your piece of juniper. Up to that point, you've got a Glengarry. This is a Glengarry bonnet.
A I'll say
Glengarry bonnet.
You've almost got a Glengarry bonnet.
I know, I was about to say, I'm quite close. I was trying.
A Glengarry bonnet, and what we do is here, when you are presented, become a full-time Atholl Highlander, you present with your piece of juniper, and the juniper then is put in behind your cap badge, like that,
Yes.
and then you wear that whenever you're on parade.
Wear that whenever you're on.
The ducal coronet, so that's our royal connection.
Yes.
Then we have the wild man of Atholl.
Okay, well, I've seen him dotted around, and I haven't asked yet, but it seems to be he's holding sort of a dagger and a key.
This alludes to King James III of Scotland, issued orders to Earls Crawford and Atholl
Okay.
to go and bring the Lord of the Isles, Earl Ross, into custody in 1475.
No.
He was creating a lot of trouble in
Yes,
the Isles,
yes.
and King James wasn't very happy about it. So Earl Crawford had the boats, Atholl had the men, they went,
They combined forces.
and yes, they went and they captured him, brought him back to Scotland where he stood trial. That is the wild man of Atholl, hence the key for locking him up
Yes.
and the dagger to capture him.
To capture him.
So 550 years ago,
Yeah.
1475.
The way back to
Incredible
James
history.
III. It's incredible history.
I started my working life on Atholl Estates here. So I started in the forestry in 1971, and I went to the farm in 1973, and I left the farm in 1980, and I joined the local police, Tayside Police. And I was in the police for 27 and a half years, and that is a long service police medal. And then that's the Queen's Golden Jubilee medal, because I got that when I was serving.
And so this is the Platinum Jubilee.
This is
So
the platinum that
recent
we
one.
have done, and that's why it's yellow and black, because the ducal colours are yellow and black.
Yes, exactly. I do know that. How wonderful. Can I ask, did you ever meet Her Late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II?
I have, yes, on several occasions.
Have you?
Both privately and when she's been officially on things. We have walked through the Glen from here, as Queen Victoria did, to Braemar Gathering. And while the Queen is in residence, and now the King is in residence at Balmoral, every year they come to the Braemar Gathering for an hour.
Do they?
So what we have done in the last couple of times is we have got a little help, a little transportation up to Forest Lodge, and then we walk through the valleys into Aberdeenshire. Get picked up so we can all do it in a day.
Yes.
Get picked up at the other end, and our other clothes, our uniform clothes, we're wearing the kilt when we're going through, and our other uniform clothes are there, and we get dressed up, and then we parade for the gathering. And in 2011, we presented our colours to the Queen in the royal box, and she came forward and she touched our colours, which just re-establishes that connection.
Exactly, exactly. Wow, well, what a treat for me just to meet you, be in your presence, you know, have you transfer some of your wonderful, amazing knowledge onto me. But I will say, Bertie, the next time I come up here, I'm looking forward to you being dressed as smartly as Graham is.
I'll never be that smart, but I can try.
The original colours granted by Queen Victoria to the Atholl Highlanders in 1845 are kept secure in the attics of the castle, where Kieran carefully unwrapped them to show me.
So here we are in the attics, and this is the original Atholl Highlanders colours that were awarded by Queen Victoria.
No, these are the original flag, so the colours, but they're in such a fragile condition we can't have them out on display. But there you see our Wild Man of Atholl. Yes.
And the two colours.
And the two colours. Beautiful. So something like this, Kieran, I mean, of course it's very fragile. These are the original ones. Do you have to do any restoration around it, or is it better just to keep it as is?
These have actually been conserved, so they're now in a stable state.
Right.
So they are kept up here out of the way of the public and out of use.
Yes.
So they will stay like this, and hopefully that will mean the condition will be preserved for next generation.
Yeah, for the next generation. I mean, they are absolutely exquisite. What a treat to see this.
Thank you so much for joining me on this magical journey into the history and landscape of Blair Castle. Gordon Castle, once one of Scotland's largest houses, is the family home of the Gordon Lennoxes, and I cannot wait to find out about its history.
Hello!
Hello, hello. How lovely to see you again.
It's so nice to see you.
It's just brilliant.
Oh, right, and look at, I keep saying I bring the sun, or maybe you brought the sun for me.
You're very lucky. It's not always like this.
Oh,
I don't know.
Although Angus persuaded me to come and live here by saying it was the sunniest place in Scotland, which is probably true.
It's a relative term, though.
So tell me just a little bit about the history of Gordon Castle.
My forebears built a castle here in 1460 or something, but didn't live here. It was just one of their many houses, and were actually based in Huntly. But when the Huntly Castle started to fall down, about 1690, they moved here and made this their principal residence. But it wasn't big enough for them, even though it was really quite big.
But was this originally built, because to me, as I look at it, it looks like a real fortress. Was it built to defend?
Well, I think the original bit was built to defend.
The tower around the tower.
Right.
But actually the fourth Duke of Gordon decided to turn it into a show house. So he extended it enormously, and actually, because it was all rather romantic, he put the battlements on. There weren't really any battlements before and that sort of stuff. But he turned it into an absolutely huge house. And you can only see about a fifth of it now, because my grandfather knocked it all down. So at its heyday, which was from the 1770s until about the 1940s, it was 569 feet long. So it was a huge place. And we're a bit relieved that it's not that big anymore.
You mentioned Duke of Gordon. Now, where did the dukedom come from? Clearly, obviously, through a member of the royal family, and how did that come about?
No, so the northeast of Scotland was very Gordon-centric. And my history is probably not good enough to tell you exactly how it began. But he was called the Marquess of Huntly, and then one of the Marquesses of Huntly was created the Duke of Gordon.
Okay.
I mean, they had enormous lands in Scotland, about 300,000 acres, of which this was their main residence.
Right.
But the fifth Duke, so the son, who'd had a very good Peninsular War and all sorts of things, he died without issue that he was prepared to talk about.
Okay.
So he left this to his nephew. So his sister, the fifth Duke's sister, so this was in 1836, the fifth Duke's sister had married someone called the Duke of Richmond, who lived at a place called Goodwood. Down in Sussex.
Of course.
And his son, the then Duke of Richmond, inherited all 300,000 acres and this place, and they lived part of the year up here and part of the year down at Goodwood.
So this was brought into the Goodwood family.
Yeah,
got you.
And then roll on a century, effectively.
Right.
And there'd been massive death duties and all that sort of stuff. Roll on a century, and all the Scottish lands were sold in the 1930s and 40s.
Okay.
But my grandfather, who had been brought up here by his grandfather, the Duke of Richmond and Gordon, obviously his cousin had Goodwood at that stage, and he approached the people that this had been sold to and said, I'll take the house off your hands. And at that stage, the house was falling down, had dry rot, where there wasn't dry rot, there was wet rot and all this sort of thing. And he said, I'll take the house off your hands, I'll give you a little bit of money if you throw in some fishing and a bit of farming. Sadly, not the 300,000 acres that we used to have.
This is really a poignant time in history because you've mentioned the death duties. And this is something, as historic house homeowners, you really look at that period of what the First and Second World War did. Those who were meant to inherit, some of them were lost at war. Then on top of that, you had the death duties, especially if they never came back from the war, sometimes double death duties because the Great War and the Second World War were so close together. And that really started that 1950s where it was the destruction of the country house. And you mentioned that this was sort of pulled down.
This was pulled down.
During that period.
So the tower that you can see here was joined up to the whole of this castle, and the whole of this wing, there was exactly the same, the other side of the tower as well.
But the main mansion block was in the middle.
Was in the middle.
But
because his father had been killed at Ypres in the First World War, so that's why his grandfather had brought him up here and at Goodwood. Because he had no father.
He had a love affair with this place. And he was a career soldier, but when he retired, he came and lived here and converted this wing into a family house.
Right.
Wow.
And knocked down the rest.
Where Angus spent a lot of his summer holidays, because his father was also in the army and was also a general. So they travelled around, didn't you, for Germany and Hong Kong and wherever. So this was very much home base.
Right.
And so he spent a lot of
so you've
his
got
childhood
wonderful
years
memories.
I've got wonderful memories.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you have to love a place like this to even think about taking it on, frankly. You really do.
Kind of
You've got to have emotion, which is actually why we did what we do to the castle. So we had great fun. We did it up to within an inch of its life. And
it wasn't great fun replumbing, rewiring in the middle of the winter, where we could only have site meetings with the builders for 15 minutes in the castle because it was so cold that it was actually 6 degrees warmer outside than it was inside the castle with no heating, no whatever.
So you've been able to evolve it as a couple into making it, and that's what we have, many of us had to do.
Economically viable is the bottom line.
We've got to A, try and make it economically viable, B, it's too big for just two of us. Our children are grown up and living in the south. So what we do is we rent it out to fishing parties and wedding parties and all sorts of corporate entertainment and things like that. But we keep some weeks back. So the week after next, we'll be completely full of all our children and their friends. And frankly, that's why we do it. But the reality is the roof needs to stay on.
Yes.
We've got to pay the people that look after the gardens. We've got to pay the groundsmen and all that sort of stuff.
And the upkeep.
And
it's
the
just
upkeep.
the maintenance and the upkeep of stonework, of floors, of, you know.
The windows,
like,
I know.
The windows,
I know. Everything. And but it was worth those sort of 15-minute in the freezing cold meetings to replumb, to rewire, to redecorate, to get the furniture
Well,
so that you've made it. Yeah,
but
which
also
is brilliant.
it's really important that these houses are lived in. You know, that's what gives it its uniqueness,
Yes.
is the fact that it's full of, you know, laughing teenagers or tiny children, or I've got granddaughters now who are coming up and learning how to fish and running around the castle, you know, and it's really exciting. And then for sort of paying guests, it's of giving them a taste of being really beautifully looked after in a really beautiful surroundings. And they can take those memories away with them as well. And we love seeing that. We love seeing people enjoy the castle as much as we do.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So should we head in?
Yeah, well, why don't we go this way?
Okay.
Come on in.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful.
All my old relics.
So where I'm walking in right now would have been
Part
what?
of it. Well, in the old castle, this was actually a kitchen. And where they would have been eating is about 100 yards away. So can you imagine how cold the food would have been?
Yeah, yeah.
But this,
exactly.
my grandfather remembers riding a bicycle on the thing above here, from one end to the other. So it was extraordinary.
Oh, you've converted that into just
the,
sort of...
actually, my grandparents converted it into a hall.
Into the hall.
Yeah.
And they put this staircase back in because the staircases had all collapsed.
This is rather a grand room, and the reason it's a grand room is that, with these pillars, etc., is that this was the Dowager Duchess's apartment here.
I mean, it looks properly done up. This is the two of you, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. And then dotted around.
So that is the 5th Duke of Gordon.
So that's the 5th, and he didn't have any heirs, is that right?
He had no heirs. He was a general. He helped raise the Gordon Highlanders together with his dad and his mother, actually, who's called Jean, Duchess of Gordon. And then the next one is my great-great-grandfather, who's the 7th Duke of Richmond and Gordon by that stage.
Okay.
And this place was absolutely in its heyday when he was alive. And then this is my grandfather.
Right.
Who also had a good war.
General Sir Geordie Gordon.
General Sir Geordie.
So he's the one that's really kind of...
He's the one that brought it back.
Yes.
Changed it.
Yes.
Lived here. And
he wasn't a wealthy man because he was just a career soldier. So when he knocked down all of that part of the castle, he actually sold the stone.
No, he sold the lead off the roof.
And the lead off the roof, which then put the roof back on this part of the castle.
Yeah.
Clever.
And built the staircases
and built
back.
The staircases.
But it's quite fun. He has always had a very beady stare. And sometimes when you're out there in the garden, you can see through all the way through. And he's always watching me.
He's making sure you're doing he saved it and now you've got to continue.
Exactly.
And so the 5th Duke is there, and you mentioned his father, and that's the one that you mentioned earlier as well, that he's the one that sort of built the Gordon Castle into the show castle.
Exactly. It's really important in those days to have 365 windows. So
well, it was keeping up with the Joneses, wasn't it? Because everyone in the south was extending their houses massively, and I think we're very grateful because it means that the windows are huge. They're not from the tiny keep and castle from a typical Scottish built to defend with tiny slit windows for your arrows. That part was around the tower, but when he extended, we got this wonderful light, these huge big windows, lovely big ceilings.
Flat walls.
Fantastic. Oh, this is lovely. Absolutely lovely. So
and a lot of Scottish houses had these entertaining rooms upstairs, but it is also why we do have a bit of an odd layout in the castle because it was the kitchen downstairs. So to try and get it up to how people live today means that we've got some bedrooms downstairs, some bedrooms upstairs.
Right, so commercially speaking, if I were to come here as a guest, I can hire out, rent out.
We don't rent out rooms, so this is not a hotel.
Right,
you take the whole house.
That's what I mean.
So we want people to feel that they are genuinely living here.
At home.
At home for their week. So it's fully staffed and fully catered. It's quite high end. So again, during the estate, we try to cater for everybody. So if you want to be beautifully looked after with a butler, with a chef, with people making your beds, then you can stay in the castle. If you want to do self-catering, you can take one of our wonderful cottages dotted around the estate.
One of those cottages, which we did up last year, is called Kennel's Lodge, and that's where the original Gordon setters were bred.
Tell me about this. So that really does come from your family
Well,
name.
it does.
But they are mad dogs. So the Duke said when he bred them, he said he wouldn't take them shooting until they were at least 3 or 4 years old because they were a bit scatty and they weren't trustworthy on the moor.
We're
So they
being
need
asked,
a lot of
We're
exercise.
forever being asked as why we haven't got a Gordon setter.
I was just about to ask you that.
We will one day. We will one day.
I'm absolutely planning it now. We're just about to hire a new gamekeeper.
Right.
And he is going to be the lucky recipient of a Gordon setter puppy.
Fantastic. Now, the walled garden. As I'm in here, where is that in relation to straight on?
So it's about a quarter of a mile that way.
Okay. Oh, wow. So it's a nice, good jaunt.
But there was, so what we can see now is the garden that Angus's grandmother laid out to be in the front of this house.
Okay.
Originally, everything was focused on the tower because that was the centre of the castle.
Right.
So there was an incredible path called the Broad Walk, which led you up to the walled garden. And the reason the walled garden was so big was because obviously back in the day, it was like feeding a village. So you might have invited, your 12 friends to come and stay, but they didn't just come 12 friends like we do now. They brought their butler, their maid, their housemaid, the stable boy, someone to look after the coaches. So the downstairs, like in Downton Abbey, the downstairs was actually probably bigger than the people upstairs by some considerable margin. So the reason that the walled garden was so large was because it was feeding a huge amount of people. Right. And so the path to the walled garden was focused on the tower.
So can we head out there and have a look? Because that is really something I want to talk to you both about. The historic walled garden at Gordon Castle is one of the oldest and largest kitchen gardens in Britain. Its renewal and redesign is Zara and Angus's inspiring vision to help secure the future of this stunning home and estate. Okay, I'm actually speechless right now. This is like everything I could have ever dreamed of for a walled garden. Plus, you are Garden of the Year 2021 Historic Houses, is that right?
That
the
is
year
correct.
after Mapperton.
Yes.
Yeah.
The year after you.
Exactly.
You showed us the way.
It was very special.
Oh, but I can see why. Now, talk to me about this, because this really is a labor of love and your big project here at Gordon Castle, is that right?
Well, it's one of many projects, but it's certainly the biggest. And I think that, and we just decided it was just a field mown for grass. And we decided that it should be the backstory to all our products. And in order to make it the backstory, we thought we'd better make it look pretty amazing. And to be honest, my rather amazing wife has been the one that's mostly done it. And you're completely right, a labour of love, mostly her labour.
I think we both felt, even when it was a grass field, that it was a magical space.
Yes.
And Angus's dream was, right, let's create products that we can have shelf life, that can have added value, that we can get to centres of population, whether that be Edinburgh, London, New York, globally. Hopefully start nationally, but then go globally, to create some kind of income that would then support the garden. So having this...
And the rest of the estate.
Yeah, the estate, exactly.
So having these products, he was very keen on the gin. I'm a non-drinker, so that was very much his baby. So he wanted to grow botanicals in the garden to flavour our gin. And I wanted to do a bath and body range of products because I thought we could grow herbs and essential oils and have wonderful fragrances to naturally fragrance our bath and body products. So that's how it started. And then it kind of morphed into a bit of a monster in that we thought, oh gosh, well, if we're doing this, we shouldn't just grow it as a market garden, which Angus's grandmother had done and grown raspberries in here. We should actually make it beautiful. So then we asked I mean, as you can see on a day like today, it is a magical space.
So the thought about making it beautiful was that it might attract, if we got a big name, it might attract more people to come and visit it and pay the entrance fee and things like that. Well, I interviewed 4 quite famous garden designers, and one of them thought we were mad, and that was the one that was probably right. And one of them
she said it would never work. It would be way too expensive, ridiculous to even think about it.
One of them wanted to put buildings everywhere, and I said, look, we've got a limited budget, we can't put buildings everywhere.
Yeah.
One of them wanted to turn it back into the original Victorian Edwardian garden.
Right.
And the 4th one was Arnie Maynard. So I realised suddenly that actually not only was he a rather inspirational designer, but he was a really keen kitchen gardener.
But also we decided that, I mean, can you imagine, you're faced with 8 acres, a completely blank canvas, and I'm not a trained horticulturalist, so I would have probably done, you know, a little bit here and then a little bit there, and by, you know, 10 years later it would have looked a complete mess. So we couldn't afford to have someone build a sort of instant Chelsea garden, but we did want to have a template, a master plan to work to. So we knew that we couldn't afford to buy very mature trees. Everything was going to have to be a tiny plug plant because, you know, the lavender, we needed 3,000 lavender plants. So we had to buy them as tiny plug plants because that was all we could afford. So we knew it was going to take between 5 and 10 years for the garden to be built, just doing the hard landscaping. I mean,
which we still haven't finished.
We've laid 48,000 bricks just to do the edges of the paths.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that number?
So 48,000 bricks just to do the edges.
So there's 2.5 kilometres of path within this garden. So
2.5 kilometres of path. But do you feel a great sense of walking through here now, this great sense of satisfaction? I know it's really hard work, and from what I've been sort of told as I've been walking around is you are sort of on your hands and knees in the dirt.
I do count myself as a gardener.
Yes.
You know, I am part of the gardening team.
Yes.
And if I'm not here, you know, 40 hours a week, less weeding is massive. So yeah, I do count myself as a gardener. And what's interesting is when you're working in the garden every day, all you see is the stuff you haven't quite finished or you need to change or you haven't done all the weeding or the mess or the whatever. Whereas when people like you come and we have to dig out some old photographs of what it was like as a grass field, that's probably the only times that I really think, wow, it does look like a garden. So for years and years, you know, one tiny square looked a bit like a garden, but the whole rest of it was a mound of earth, diggers, you know, it looked like a building site.
And now, it is a haven for insects and butterflies and the most tranquil of places to spend a glorious Scottish summer afternoon. What a spellbinding transformation.
I just want to jump in to this, all of this, and taste it all. So explain to me.
So this is one of our vegetable beds. So basically the design is that we have 4 big vegetable beds on the corners of the central part of the garden.
Okay.
This is our brassica bed this year. So you can see wonderful kale, purple sprouting broccoli. We've got various different types of kale, cauliflower, every vegetable you could possibly imagine really, but also a lot of companion planting. So we've got this wonderful tagetes, we do this white alyssum here, and it's edged with this catmint, it's Nepeta, Persian blue, around the edges, which has sadly just gone over before you've arrived, but it was very vibrant blue. It attracts hundreds of bees. So it's all about, you know, sustainable gardening. We don't use sprays, we don't use pesticides on the fruit, and all of this, which would have originally gone to the castle to feed all of those people, now goes to the cafe.
This is lush, this is green, I want to eat it all. It's ready to be, you know, thrown into something and made into a recipe. But the season, I am in Scotland, I'm quite far up north.
Very far up north. I mean, we're lucky here, we're close to the Moray coast, so we don't have those really harsh winters that up the mountains you would have. I mean, we do get snow and we certainly get frost, but it's nothing like as bad as it in the Highlands themselves. So we have a pretty sort of mild climate. We have the wind. That's our worst thing for, you know, people come to the wall garden and think, oh, you've got the huge 15-foot walls all around the garden. It must protect it. Well, as you can see now, you stand in the middle of the garden and there's no protection. Close to the walls, there is obviously a big difference.
But that's why we've planted quite a lot of hedges, but they haven't grown yet.
Yeah,
right. But when they do, and we've got a bit of height
shelter belts and things, you know, we do need that protection. But again, we have this extraordinarily long daylight hours. So although, you know, people have got their sweet peas blooming in May and we don't have that because we've only just started our growing season, come June, July, when we've got, you know, 12 plus hours of daylight, suddenly all of our plants, you know, just keep growing in the night, basically.
Right.
June it's 22 hours of daylight.
Yeah, so, you know, that's extraordinary. So so our growing season is really quite short and quite intense. But we can still be picking sweet peas and flowers in October because we haven't had a frost yet, when everyone else's is over in July, August.
That's right.
So, you know, there is pluses and minuses.
I mean, I feel like I could spend weeks here.
Well, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, bring your gardening gloves.
Yes, well, I might have to learn a few things from Zara, that's for sure.
Come down.
Okay.
So these are all our cut flower beds, and as you can see, they're colour themed. So we have 2 on this side of the garden and 2 on the other side. They've all got wonderful, rather romantic names. So this is Icy Glen, and we've got Scotch Thistle and Glowing Heather and Golden Peat. So, but this is sort of whites, yellows and greens, and with a sort of touch of lavender and these wonderful rows of sweet peas. So I love sweet peas. We grow a row in each of the cut flower beds because I love the scent so much. You know, we are trying to be more sustainable in our garden in the same way everyone's trying to be more sustainable. So we grow these flowers, we try to sell them to local florists, we make up bunches weekly here and we sell bunches of flowers here.
So really, as I'm walking around this garden, this amazing garden, you're using all parts of it, not just for food production and in the cafe, but as you just mentioned, for your guests, for the weddings, for you know, people to come in and make bouquets and
And this is a pretty important. This is a pretty important part of the garden because it's lavender, and lavender goes into our gin. We distill essential oils from the lavender, and it goes into our bath and body products. And it's it's not just us that enjoys it, as you can see the bees enjoy it as well.
So, and the noise from the bees as the lavender's just slightly gone over as well, but you know, a week ago it was just humming with bees, and we need our pollinators. We've got 5 hives the other side of the wall there, but we make our own honey, you know, so everything in the garden is trying to be as natural, as sustainable and as beautiful as we can possibly make it.
But can I just ask you both this question, because this is a big project. Walking around, you make it sound like it's so simple, like you knew to put the lavender and then it was going to go into the products in the shop. And
but we were incredibly naive, I have to say, and thank goodness we were, because we would never have done it. If I knew now, 10 years on, what I knew at the start, I would have gone, you must be joking.
I don't think it was brilliant, so I think it was stupidity, actually.
Right, and sometimes that works, and clearly it has. It absolutely has. But you mentioned something, Angus, about this Gordon Castle brand, and that's what I want to touch on right now, because I think it's really fascinating. When I look at historic houses and how they've really evolved, if you think about it, after the Second World War, we started to open up our houses to the public, right? And that was just bringing in visitor income. And then you started to look at what other historic houses were doing. Oh, we're going to have weddings now, right? So the law changed and we could have weddings there. And then we're starting to have events, or we're having festivals. But you guys have really gone over and above and beyond that in creating a brand, so that if I'm coming to visit Gordon Castle, I'm not just going to walk away with a tea towel, right? The standard tea towel. I can walk away with the scent that I've just been, you know, taking
whether that's
in.
a beautiful scented candle, or whether that's you know, some aromatherapy oils, or whether that's, you know, flowers
or the gin.
The gin. So the whole idea is that all these estates, wonderful though they are, and lucky we are to look after them.
They're money pits.
They are money pits to a certain extent, but also they're finite. So you can only have so many visitors. You can only sell so many potatoes or fishing on the river, or
that's right,
or bedrooms in a holiday cottage. Whereas the whole idea of the products is that we use a small amount of essential oils,
yes,
and you can scale it up, and it becomes infinite, and global domination follows shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I've 100%. I think you're definitely onto something here, and I think global domination will absolutely happen, no doubt.
As I explored, head gardener Ed Ballum was hard at work. But I couldn't help interrupt and ask about the changes to the garden.
Ed, you've been here since the beginning, the vision of this.
Yes.
And you've really seen this come to life, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there was very little here when I started. So some of the groundwork had been done, but very little planting. It was really a building site.
Right.
So it's turned from a building site into what feels like a fairly mature garden.
Yes.
I think at the beginning of the project, we were thinking maybe it was going to take us 5 years to complete the garden, and we're almost 10 years in now, and we're not finished yet. But that's mainly because we're such a small team. So we have just 4 gardeners.
Right, that
we
is
do
small.
all the work ourselves. So everything from obviously all the planting, but all the building work as well, all the construction, every brick that's in the garden we've laid, every archway, every post and rail. So it's slow going, but it means we really know the garden. We can make tweaks to the design as we go along.
Yes.
So it's kind of grown kind of more organically than we expected. But
and this is hands-on, a lot
it's a
of hard work.
Garden.
Yes.
And that's the most challenging part of my job, is getting the balance between the garden looking great for 10,000 or so visitors, and also getting a huge amount of produce out the garden.
Right.
And that's really difficult, you know.
Yes. You're creating the produce, you are having to really get your hands dirty, and there's so many different elements, but
That's
how
right.
fun.
It's fantastic.
You know
yeah.
that saying that projects keep you young?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not quite sure about that, but it certainly keeps me engaged and excited. You know.
Thank you so much.
No problem at all.
Because you're very busy, so
yeah.
You took time out for me, and I really appreciate it.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
After walking all 8 acres of the garden, time for some retail therapy with Zara.
Zara, I do love a good shop, but I think yours is extra special, isn't it?
Well, I think ours is a little bit more unique in that we've got so many of our very own products. We're not just buying in. I mean, obviously we do have a few of those, but most of our products do come with something emanating from the garden or something from the estate. So we do use our estate tweed on some of the notebooks and that kind of thing, but especially our bath and body range that you can see here, which is all fragrance with natural essential oils, which are taken from the garden. So
where do I start?
Well, why don't you try some of our hand creams? So this is got some of the lavender that you saw earlier.
Okay.
Why don't you try a little bit of that? I've put some on my hands, and it does smell.
Oh,
and I think you can tell it does have a sort of that natural smell from it. It doesn't smell like a sort of natural, unnatural fragrance.
Oh my goodness. No, it doesn't. It smells fresh.
Yeah, so that's the flower garden range, which is quite girly, it's quite floral. And then we have a more sort of unisex range, which is the orangery, which is sort of more citrusy and sort of orangey and lime. So you could probably smell one of these candles. So you get that smell from the orangery candle and that.
But what is just absolutely astonishing is that it's not just for your shop here. This is a bigger scale. You're going hotels, you're doing Airbnbs.
This has been really fascinating because this has been a steep learning curve for us as well. Neither Angus or I were in the branding business, or, what type of lid did you want, or what type of, our logo obviously came from actually an old prayer book. So this G we found on an old prayer book. And then by fate, we were looking for some stone for the children's play area. And we went to the rubble of stone that Angus's grandfather had knocked down. And we found this wonderful G engraved on a piece of stone. So we thought, well, it's fate, that's going to be our logo. So
yep, it's a beautiful
logo.
Thank you, Zara. This is incredible.
Not
and
at all.
I'll
We'd love showing you around the garden. So
sure, I'll be stocking up.
Come back again soon.
I will.
The River Spey weaves its way through the Gordon Castle estate, boasting beautiful wooded landscape and some of the best salmon fishing in the world. So obviously, I couldn't help but get the waders on.
Now you told me to wear glasses, so I'm wearing just like normal glasses.
So we're going to go fishing with a fly, and on the end of the fly are two very sharp hooks, which is why you're wearing a hat and glasses, because people who haven't done it a lot, especially when there's a bit of a wind, can end up with the fly in the eye. So we want to avoid that.
Okay.
So if you put those on, and I'll get some boots ready for you.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
Now you need to get these on.
Okay. Wow, this is quite a kit. It's like I'm going on the moon. And this is the River Spey, right?
This is the River Spey.
This is famous, isn't it? For
it's A, famous, and B, we're lucky enough to be on quite a famous bit of it.
It's fantastic. Oh, okay.
You put it on like a coat,
okay,
like
yes.
that.
Okay,
exactly.
okay. All right. Thanks, Angus. It's fantastic.
And then do it up the front.
Yep.
And you're all set to go, I think. Right, come on then, Julie, let's go and find Lewis, and he's going to show you the ropes. This is Julie, Lewis. This is Lewis, one of our gillies.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I've only done this once before.
Yep.
And that was, I was taught to do like tick, tock, tick, tock.
We'll get you taught the right way.
Okay.
There we are.
Okay. So this is the beat here, right?
This is our beat, yes. This is one of my main pools called Alt Darg, named after the burn that comes down there. Alt Darg translates in Gaelic as red burn. Guess where they got the red from?
Love that. There you go. That's
yeah, we're going to have a quick go down here.
Okay. So that is not a tick-tock, is that?
No. So this is a bit longer rod than what you'd have probably used before. This is 15 foot in total.
Okay.
So you'd have probably been taught your overhead cast, which you say is that tick-tock. The spey cast here was developed on this river because of the high banks and the trees, as you can see on the other side, to allow us to be able to fish alongside here without getting caught up, which just gets boring and you're stuck in the bank every other cast.
So that's the reason.
So with a spey cast, we lift up, we twist round nice and slowly, line drops into the water here, and then we flicker forward.
Okay.
So yeah, no point.
Do it a couple more times for me. And then what happens?
Then
wait.
We sit back and let the river do its thing. It's fishing.
Okay.
As she comes through off the side of that foam line, you can see it on the water there.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're looking for fish.
Ah, where the foam line is. Okay.
Yeah. So would you like to have a go?
Okay.
So right hand on the top, left hand down below the reel there.
Okay.
Start with the rod pointing down towards the water a bit.
And then I go up.
A nice gentle lift up. Swinging round to the right. And a push forward.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit quicker on the twist.
Okay, let's just fix that. So I just gotta like do it?
Yes.
Okay, going down, not be afraid. Okay, go up. Okay.
Nearly.
I just wanna get one right. That's all I wanna do is try to get one right.
Left.
Okay, but what happened there? I felt that was good.
So that was all right. Just final delivery, you're cutting under a little bit. We need to come over.
Okay,
yeah.
It's really hard.
It's a bit like golf.
Yeah,
it looks nice and easy.
I'm terrible at golf. How many years have you been doing this, Lewis?
So I've been here now for 9 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But you just
grew up? So I grew up fishing on the river, yeah. Every fish is different. Steady. We just got that one on there.
I'm fired. I'm fired, everybody. Lewis is going to fire me. Oh my gosh. Oh. I mean, do you have to have like good hand-eye coordination? Does this mean I don't have good hand-eye coordination?
No, not at all. No, it's just.
I think it does. I mean, I'm okay at tennis.
No, we'll get it.
You know.
It's a bit like riding a bike. You fall off a few times, then all of a sudden, away you go. That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna try one more time, Lewis, and then I just might have to throw in the towel.
All right.
Okay. Tell me when.
Yeah, cast and nail.
Oh, that was better.
That was better.
What happened there?
So there, we were a little bit more in the air, but almost going towards your tick-tock casting that we were doing. But flies in the water, we've got every chance.
Okay, The fly is in the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take that.
I'm going to take that and get a fish.
Definitely.
Right now.
What a simply amazing visit. Gordon Castle is an absolute gem, and I hope to return in the future.